seconded to approve the order of the agenda as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item C is the approval of the minutes of the December 7th, 2020 meeting. They have been distributed and are on pages 3 through 6 on the packet.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 7th, 2020 meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item D is the building permits report. It has been distributed to you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits for 12/21. They have been distributed. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next order of business is the consent agenda. The consent agenda has been distributed. We have items A through G. Are there any additions, questions, Commissioners?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed. Items A through G. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioners. Moving on to the regular agenda. The first item is to hold the first reading, public hearing on the rezoning at today at 5:30, December 21st. The Wilds 21st edition of subdivision and rezoning from agricultural to R1, 1 and 2 family dwellings. R-1SM, mixed 1 and 2 family dwellings. District R2 is limited to multiple dwellings and public facilities. Mr. Sober.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to note I am getting a text from the applicant that the Zoom link isn't working for him to join on. So at that public hearing, I hope he'll be able to join in by then. So I'm going to forward it to him. I apologize if it appears that I'm multitasking while I do that.
Would you like me to move this, that we,
Commission President, I actually got a lot of emails. I don't know what happened with the link, but this is Emily. I'm resending what Melissa sent to me. I'm not sure what happened with the link. So maybe we want to wait like 30 seconds to kind of kick it out to everybody quick, if that's okay with everybody.
Commissioners, I get a couple of nods, heads and nods. If we have a consensus, that's what we'll do then. Thank you.
This is Melissa, and I've also reposted the link on the website, and that seems to be working for people who are clicking that as well. So we'll look into what went wrong.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Emily.
And I'm just looking at the attendees right now, and he just popped on, and I see the Park District is there. I'm not aware of any other members of the public that have any concerns with this application.
So you think we're good?
If it's okay with you, Mr. President, I'll carry on.
All right, Mr. Soberg, please.
Thank you again. We received this application to accommodate development of 322 new single-family residential lots.
Excuse me, Tim, we're getting a lot of feedback from you. Let's try it again.
Okay. The additional lots for public facilities for Park District. This proposal continues the course of development. I think you're hearing it again, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to speak with my volume down, and I can't hear it on my side now.
You're good.
Okay. The city's inventory of homes here continues to be healthy. You'll note in the staff report that we provided this inventory. I think this is something that should be carefully considered as plats are approved, but more so when we consider requests for improvements. Staff will update that inventory when the applicant requests improvements. Related to the plat approval, which will be forthcoming second reading, we've noted the previous traffic studies for Cheyenne Street and 52nd Avenue did not include such a high amount of residential units, which are now occurring in the wilds. And with this additional 322 new single-family residential and the extra ones that would be part of the medium-density residential development, we got a little concerned about that. So in our staff report, you'll note the traffic engineer is asking that a traffic study be done prior to final approval. Engineering staff is currently working to consider how best to move forward with that request. They'd like to do the traffic study in-house, which I believe has been reported. But as that area develops and those improvements that might be necessary should be considered, we want to have that be worked out between now and the second reading. At their October 13th, 2020 meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and reviewed the application. They are hereby recommending approval of the application with the proposed conditions in the staff report, as you'll note. Since that time, the developers found a way to accommodate the construction of the proposed park, which was encouraged by the Planning Commission. What they want to do is utilize what would typically be required for fee and lieu when a park is not dedicated, and then they would use that to build that park privately and then turn it over to the Park District. If this is approved by the City Commission and the West Fargo Park District, staff can accommodate that in our legal agreements, which are recorded against the property, ensuring that that would then be turned over to the Park District. Staff, again, will also be recommending that prior to final approval that a traffic study be completed by the city or the developer, or that issue has been resolved between engineering and the applicant. So with that, a public hearing is scheduled tonight. We did have to reschedule this one. If you recall, this was continued a few weeks back, and we rescheduled it. They changed some of the lots and added in an R1SM zoning district from when it was first reviewed at the Planning Commission. So it has been adequately noticed tonight. We have received no comments from the public because all the surrounding land around here really is owned mostly by the developer. So with that, I'm available for any questions. The developer is online if you have any questions from them as well.
Did you get any specific comments, Tim, from the Park District with regard?
Barb is on the line. It's a little bit unique. They were primarily concerned initially legally if it could be done, and they inquired with John Shockley as well, as did we. So they're comfortable, but I'm going to continue that discussion and dialogue prior to putting it into an agreement. We always, if it affects Park District, we'll send the agreement to them as well to review.
Certainly. Thank you.
The template we used for the agreements was written by John Shockley, and both parties use him as an attorney, so I believe we'll get that worked out.
All right, very good. Are there any questions of Mr. Solberg?
I have one question for Tim.
Please, Mr. Olson.
Later on in the agenda tonight, we're going to be correcting a zoning for a plot of land that's just to the east of this in the wilds. And I just want to make sure that we've got everything zoned properly so we don't have to go through a replatting of something similar to that.
Yeah, it happens from time to time when I'm doing a number of zonings that the plat changes between. It doesn't happen often. It does happen from time to time. One way that we're looking at remedying that is by writing the ordinance in-house within our office, and then having the attorney review them rather than having the attorney write the ordinance. So changes to the plat happen. We don't always communicate them correctly between the attorney's office and ourselves, and so that's why that happened.
Okay.
It's the fault of probably the process and not of any one person.
Sure. Yep. Thanks, Tim.
Additional questions for Mr. Solberg? Hearing none, I close the regular agenda, and I declare that we are in a public hearing. A public hearing on the rezoning on Wilds 21st edition. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Is somebody trying to get in?
I don't see anyone with their hands raised. However, I do have Jonathan Eunice, Barb Erbstasser with the Park District, and Matt Welly available to speak if they'd like to make any comments.
Please, if there'd like to be any comments. Hearing none, I close the public hearing. We go back into the regular agenda. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for Mr. Solberg, or what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve with the 7 conditions if there's no additional questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of the Wilds 21st edition with the changes as noted in our agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 2 is the Board of Adjustment, a consideration of variance from required front yard setback within a C-OP district and a conditional use permit for office combined with showroom and warehouse. At 901 Christensen Drive. Mr. Solberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. This application contains 2 requests of the city. Property is zoned commercial office park and is in the Interstate Corridor Overlay District. The district standards here require certain setbacks which are problematic for the site due to an underground gas line that is difficult and costly to move. The district permitted uses also require review of their proposal to have showroom and warehousing on the site as a conditionally permitted use. The proposal is provided in your packet and shows a thoughtful site design and a building which exceeds the requirements of the district. I'd first ask the President to convene the Board of Adjustment in order to review the application for variance first, and if then approved, to review the staff's recommendation on the conditional use permit. Because 2 separate actions are required, I'll stand to have that Board of Adjustment convene.
Thank you, Mr. Solberg. We exit the regular agenda and move into the Board of Adjustment, which is the City Commission. Consideration of this variance on the front yard setback. Commissioners? Any comments?
Tim, is this because of the gas line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's okay to put a parking lot over the gas line and not a building, right?
Yeah, so if I could provide to you our criteria for granting a variance and the explanation of what they're asking for, if that's
Please,
okay.
Mr. Silver.
In the Board of Adjustment right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have 4 specific questions that they need to answer, and when you're in the Board of Adjustment, we move a little bit from what would typically be more of a commission approach, more of a policy approach, to more of a quasi-judicial approach, where you're determining facts to determine whether or not they can meet the criteria for a variance. So the 4 criteria are: 1, that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Number 2, that literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. Number 3, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. And number 4, that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. I provided in the staff report the response from the applicant. They are asking to move the front building setback from 60 feet to 25 feet. This hardship is necessitating the variance request because there's an existing 100-foot gas easement that cuts diagonally from the west property line to the northeast property corner. If they were to adhere to the building setback, they would have a very small footprint here to build, which they've provided in the attached exhibit. There's additionally an interstate conditions corridor overlay in effect of the property. That setback also is in effect and is also under that same hardship of what I just previously stated. They believe that the front setback allows a better view of the building, and the higher construction standard that is in the interstate corridor overlay will help meet the intent of the district. Staff believes the applicant has provided proof that special circumstances exist on the property which cause hardship in development of the property. We believe there are instances where development of the property with an existing underground gas line has been very costly, upwards of $500,000 or more to move those in order to construct, oftentimes leaving the property unbuildable. We believe the property will be buildable if we can alter the requirements of the front yard setback. We also believe that we should be prepared and it would be consistent to grant a variance for another property in a similar situation as is this applicant, where the front yard setback has minimal impact, such as this case where the front yard is adjacent to interstate right-of-way and an additional road right-of-way. So there's 280 feet of right-of-way between this property and the next property across the interstate. So we feel confident that this would not be something that would only be subject to this property. You'll note my staff report on page 4, recommendation and proposed findings. I'd ask after hearing from legal counsel that the City Commission grant the variance, and I'd stand for questions. But again, encourage John to speak up on what we've written for proposed findings.
Yeah, this is Mr. Commission President. I've had an opportunity to review the written findings, and they're acceptable. And I was also at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and the facts and circumstances of this particular request definitely weigh in favor of granting it. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a commission decision.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Thank you, Mr. Solberg.
Are there any potential negatives that could pop up because of the smaller setback? I haven't heard anybody say anything. That would be my only question.
I don't believe so, personally. The intent of the district is really to create that corridor that you're proud of when you come into West Fargo. We're going to have the opportunity to review the final plans and site plan and building plans. So I think that we'll be able to make sure that that is achieved.
Thank you, additional questions, Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, if there's no questions, Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the variance on the basis of findings listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. And I will remind you, this is the Board of Adjustment that is making this motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional questions or comments as we act as the Board of Adjustment on this variance issue? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We are concluding the public hearing of the Board of Adjustment and going back into the regular agenda of the City Commission. It also requires action by the City Commission on this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the conditional use permit is what's left, and with approval of the setback distance, staff would recommend approving the conditional use permit with the recommendations as noted in the staff report. Primarily that screening and a description of product storage on site is provided and approved by the City Commission, and building and site plan review would require future approval. So within the interstate corridor overlay, the City Commission and Planning Commission is required to review site and building plans. At that time, I believe they'll provide enough screening to meet your requirements. We'll work with them on that as they continue to develop their plans. I should also note we had no negative comments on the property, and the only concern regarding our criteria for granting a conditional use permit was that screening of that storage and warehousing on the site. So I should note also there are members of Hebron Brick here. Excited to have them move to West Fargo, and John Eunice has helped represent them on development of the site, and they're available online if you do have any questions of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sober. Commissioners, Do you have any questions from the owners, from Hebron Brick? Again, you're absolutely right. What a wonderful company to join us in West Fargo.
I think it looks like a beautiful property and excited to have them here.
Thank you, Commissioner George.
I'd make a motion to approve, Mayor, with the conditions listed.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second?
Commissioner Jurdovic, second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for Hebron Brick. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Again, welcome to Hebron Brick. We're delighted to have you in West Fargo. Item number 3 is to hold a second reading of the rezoning from R1, 1 and 2 family dwellings, to public facilities for Lot 19, Block 1 of the Wilds 20th Edition. Mr. Sober.
Thank you, Your Honor. There are no changes since the first reading, so I just asked for the second reading to be held tonight.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Sober? Your pleasure, please.
Make a motion to approve?
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the rezoning of R-1, 1 and 2 family dwellings to public facilities for Lot 19, Block 1. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Sober. Item number 4 is to hold the second reading on the zoning ordinance amendment to sections 4-448 of the city ordinance provisions of home occupations. Mr. Sober.
Thank you again, Mr. President. No changes. I did, however, include the written ordinance. As I did state at the last meeting, it changed a little bit from my staff report earlier. So you have in front of you the written ordinance as it was presented at the first reading. So I'm available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sober. Are there any questions for Mr. Sober? Hearing none.
Motion to approve the second reading.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the rezoning of R-1, 1 and 2 family dwellings to public facilities for Lot 19, Block 1 in the Wilds 20th. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I'm sorry, that was for the home occupation, was it not?
Correct.
My apologies. Item number 5, application for abatement or refund of taxes for Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC for 2018. 5 properties. Mr. Nick Lee, City Assessor.
Can everyone hear me? Again, we had a little test at the beginning there.
Just fine, Nick.
Okay. Well, good evening, Commissioners. Tonight you'll be hearing an abatement refund of taxes for the 2018 tax year on 5 parcels, which consist of vacant land on the northeast corner of the exit of Veterans Boulevard and I-94. This is the first step of the process. Your decision will be forwarded to the county, who has the final decision on this type of matter. All the supporting data from both sides has been submitted for your review ahead of time. But first, I suggest we allow the applicant to speak if they're in attendance. Melissa, is there anybody?
There is one individual with their hand up. I'm not sure if they intended to raise their hand for this item. I've unmuted you. If you have your hand up, did you intend to speak on this item, Barb? No, okay. There are no other hands up.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
this is a relatively simple one because it's vacant land, and as far as I can see, you know, hardest part about vacant land or any appraisal is to have sales. There happens to be a considerable number of sales in that area. I feel fully support our valuation for 2018. The valuation suggested, in my opinion, is quite low. So I guess the long and short of it is we're recommending that we deny all 5 abatements. These are 5 separate abatements, so we will have to have 5 votes. My apologies for that. But if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Are there any questions of Mr. Lee?
I have one question, Mayor.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
We're in 2020, right?
Yep.
So why are we just dealing with a 2018 tax abatement at this time? How long do they have to request such a thing?
Well, the last day to file on this, I believe, was October 1st. Might have been November 1st. So they can go back at that point 2 years. They filed on the last day. I don't know exactly why they only filed for 2018. They were able to file for 2019 as well. They didn't. That is a mystery. But we are, you know, you can file for the last 2 years. Now it's 19 and 20. But I want to say it was November 1st was the deadline. I'd have to check my calendar, but I don't know.
Okay. So I don't know if you would know this, are they behind on taxes? Have they paid their taxes accordingly, and now they're just asking for a refund of that?
As of this morning, they have not paid their taxes on 2018. Now,
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Just, these have file numbers associated with them, and it's 4497 through 4501, if that's how you'd like to address them. Or we can address them by PIN number or address, however you feel fit, but that seems like the easiest way.
Okay, 4497, 4498, 4499.
Yep.
50 and 51.
Yep, 4501, yep.
01. Give me the number again, the last one.
Okay, 4501 is the last one, 4500, 4499, 4498, and 4497.
I'm assuming they're not in order in the packet.
No, the file number, they were put in order by something other than that.
All right, well,
but I can definitely tell you what page number.
Okay.
That helps.
All right. So commissioners, we'll deal with any questions for Mr. Lee. If we could, please, I'd like to start with 4497.
I would make a motion to deny.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to deny the tax abatement for 4497. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of denying 4497 of the Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next order is 4498.
I will make a motion to deny 4498.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to deny the tax abatement for 2018 for 4498 and the Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order is 4499.
Let's see if I can get this out without stumbling over the word deny this time, so I will make a motion to deny 4499.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurnovich. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to deny the 2018 tax abatement for 4499 of the Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is 4500.
I'll make a motion to deny 4450.
Thank you, Commissioner.
4500, I mean.
50, yes. 4500.
Correct.
I know I got it right. I wasn't so sure. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve to deny the tax abatement for 2018 for the Charleswood Commercial Estates on item number 4500. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is on item 4501, Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC for a tax abatement for 2018.
I will make one more motion to deny 4501.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdovic. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. It's been moved and seconded to deny the tax abatement for 2018 for the Charleswood Commercial Estates LLC on item number 4501. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is an informational Xcel Energy presentation on the 2021 gas pipeline project. Mr. Thomas Prerw, project manager at Xcel Energy. The information has been distributed. Ms. Richard, do we have Mr. Prerw on the line?
Yes, we do. I've opened it up for him to speak. And if
yeah, I'm here.
do you have slides that you need to share that you'd like me to facilitate for you?
Yeah. If you could
Okay.
put.
Awesome.
And Mr. Commission President,
Yes, sir.
just a quick overview. Xcel Energy has a franchise ordinance with the city in place, and they have certain obligations and rights underneath that franchise. This is a project that they're undertaking pursuant to that franchise. The city engineer, myself, and the city administrator thought it was valuable to have an opportunity for the Xcel to present what the project scope is and answer any questions you might have, both for your information and just in case there was questions from the public, so that they didn't wonder why there's a bunch of people working in the right-of-way putting pipes in the ground or other infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley.
And Mr. Prerw, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, I'll press the green button.
We are able to see your content. Thank you.
Well, good. And I should introduce Tony Greinberg. He's our principal manager up there. I don't know if he wants to join in now quick or towards the end, but he's on the phone. He's on the line as well. And
can you hear me here, Garth?
there he is. Go ahead, Tony.
Yes, certainly Tom's going to take it away, but let me just say I'm honored to be part of my first presentation as Principal Manager for Xcel Energy. As a proud West Fargo High School alum, and a guy who's celebrating his birthday tonight, what a better time to be in front of you and talk about the great work that Xcel has done and their long-standing commitment to our state and our communities. And so we're just pleased with having the opportunity tonight. It's good to see Mr. Shockley. It's been a while. Thank you for your opening comments, John, and we're excited about being able to fuel our growth in our area by the supply of natural gas. So Tom, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Grinberg.
Okay. Do you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. So as you saw in your packets and for the public involved, we have an important project coming up next year in the city of West Fargo and Fargo. This project's being done to really support the community growth out there and continue to supply safe and reliable natural gas to all of our customers. With this project, we're putting in a total of 4.5 miles of new steel natural gas pipeline in the area. 2.5 miles of this is going to be in the city of West Fargo, 2 miles in Fargo. The purpose of this project is to really reinforce our existing lines and provide enough service capacity for the next 10 years going into these communities here. So it's an important project, and the slides will really let you see that as well. As far as when this project is going to occur, we've been working with your city staff since this spring. We've been planning and design of that. Starting this fall and into the spring now, we're going to be doing quite a bit more community stakeholder consultation, getting out with the public and meeting with the cities and making sure everything's going according to the wishes of the community. Even today, we had a real good meeting with the West Fargo city staff regarding the impacts we're going to be causing and how to mitigate those. I think we're working together real well with the city. Like I said, the project's slated to start this spring of April 21, and conclude in the fall of 21. And we're working hard to make that happen. We want to, have this disruption be as short as possible and be done as cleanly as possible. So we want to talk a little bit about the project need and why we're doing this, so you really understand that this is an important project, really needed for the community. In the metro area, West Fargo and Fargo, we've got nearly 41,000 natural gas customers. In the last decade, we've seen 4% annual growth in our customers. That's 4% every single year. And going forward from 2020 up to 2030, I think we're projecting more along the lines of around 3.5%. So still very robust growth in the community. And so to meet demand for natural gas, it's really time to expand the system and meet that demand that's needed out there. This slide shows in a nutshell what we're seeing as far as our system. The red line shows the demand in the communities. The dark black is what we're able to supply right now, and the gray is what this project will allow us to supply in the future. As you can see, in 2020, we're right at the cusp of not meeting the community's expectations for supply. Now, what does that mean? Our design day is minus 36 degrees. So on a minus 36 degree day right now, we would expect to be able to serve everybody. Going into the future, if we didn't do this project, we wouldn't be able to meet a minus 36. We might be able to meet a minus 25 or minus 20. And at that point, we start turning customers off and asking them to shut off their gas. And that really gets to be an inconvenience for schools and businesses out there, not knowing that they have reliable natural gas service. So this project allows us to continue to supply customers in the coldest of days, make sure nobody's interrupted. Now, as you saw on the previous slide, this year we're right kind of at our threshold, and that concerns us a little bit. So this year we're going out and actually we're supplementing the system. We have the ability to supplement the system in the West Fargo area with liquefied natural gas. So we've got a couple of tankers connected to the system for this winter that should the natural gas supply run a little low, we've got a backup source and supply. So we are, like I say, we're concerned this year that we've got enough gas for the coldest days. So much so that we've spent quite a bit of money to reinforce the system and bring in a temporary supply of liquefied natural gas. So I'll stop there. Any questions on the project need from anybody out there?
Any questions at this point? Please continue.
Oh, sure. So the next part, we want to talk about the routing, and you probably saw in the packets. This project really affects one street in your community. One major street is 9th. We want to kind of give you a little background as why we chose that. We've actually looked at several routes, 6 or 7 different routes in order to meet this need, and we took quite a bit of time to look at all the public data we have as far as different places we can go. We consulted with different city staff. We looked at land use and other community factors. Like I say, we came up with 6 or 7 routing alternatives. The project route things we did discount or we didn't want to get into is, longer, costlier routes. These improvements are eventually paid by the community, so we have to be very careful with the money. We don't want to spend more than we need to. We discounted routes that would maybe take 2 years to install. We want to get this done next year. There are routes that really cause quite a bit of impact to other businesses and roads, such that it was going to be a very big factor in how we've laid it out. There are alternatives that didn't quite meet the 10-year need supply. So, if we're going to spend this kind of money, we want to make sure we're getting 10 years worth of capacity, and we don't have to come back and do any major projects again for a while. And then again, we also wanted to stay away from working with our interstate partners and rebuilding regulator stations and that type of stuff. That gets to be very costly and carries some other risks, project risks as far as construction and working on the interstate pipeline system. So the project route we did select, as you may have seen, is 9th Street, running from 7th Avenue all the way down to 94, so straight down the heart of the city. After that, we cross I-94 in the city of Fargo. We'll run down 55th and Center Parkway down to 33rd, and then from 33rd over to 45th. And here's a map of our route. As you can see, the light, the aqua colored lines, they're the existing backbone system right now. And you can see the new system, the new line, the purple, would both increase the capacity of the system, gives us redundancy. If the line down on 45th would happen to be out of service, we'd have a backup for all the community out there. And it really brings gas to the south and the west part of the system where things are growing the fastest. So it really meets 3 criteria for us, and really helps the community grow in the future.
I have a quick question on this. So when you're putting it on 9th Street, does that will you have to close a portion of the street to put that in?
Yes, there are parts of it will have temporary road closures for one spot. We only have to cross 9th once. That's right by City Hall. The rest of it will be in the boulevards. We'll be putting this pipeline in the boulevards, and we'll have temporary lane closures just to protect the workers and the traveling public from each other. We can get that pipe in safely. But as far as that's the limits of the road closures. There are some on the sides, like 18th and 16th, and those roads. We'll have to maybe do some weekend closures on those in order to get the pipes across those. So there are some impacts on the roads for sure. But for the most part, we're in the boulevards. We are doing a lot of directional drilling too. We're putting a directional bore underneath Main Street and a directional bore underneath 13th, so we don't disrupt traffic on those areas.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on the route? I know it's pretty, like I say, it goes to the heart of the city. So. If not, I'll jump into the safety part of our presentation. Safety with Xcel Energy is paramount to everything we do. We deal with dangerous stuff, and we want to make sure it's as safe as possible. There's a number of safety things. Safety in our design standards. Like I said, this is a steel pipeline we're putting in. It could very well be plastic, but our opinion on a higher pressure pipeline like this one will be, it's much safer to have a steel pipe in the ground than a plastic one, for all the obvious reasons. We do quite a bit of testing on the steel pipeline before it's put into service, and then once it's in service, we do annual inspections. We do internal, external inspections of this pipeline throughout the life of it. I fully expect this pipeline to be, in the ground, in service, well into the next century. It'll be well designed, well built. And here's just a list of some of the safety measures that we take. There's a whole host of things to help make sure the community is safe and there's no issues going forward. The next part of this project, communications are very, very important to us. We've got a communications team that has laid out a plan for this. We've already got a website up and running to promote or to answer questions about this project. For people in the community that wish it, we can give them emailed updates every week. We are going to have some, COVID providing, we'll have public meetings, either virtual or in person. So we'll have some open houses for the public. We will be sending out direct mail to let people know what's going on. Where there's more immediate impact, we'll do direct we'll hang door hangers. As far as, we can put stuff out on your city cable TV network, and we probably will need on this one to go both to the schools and some of the businesses to do real direct outreach to make sure they're involved and aware of the impacts. So we do aggressively do a communications plan to make sure that people know what's going on and are aware it's going on and just they're informed. Like I say, we already do have a website up and running, so we'll be making this website available to the public shortly, starting after the new year, making sure everybody knows and has that ability to contact us. As far as email goes, if people have issues with our project or questions, we have an email that's monitored every day, so we'll be able to take those questions. We also have a hotline that's going to be monitored every day, so we can take those questions from the public and answer them and respond right away. So I guess as city leaders, if you're getting questions and that type of stuff, please direct them to us or reach out to us and let us know so we can certainly make people aware of what's going on out there. Throughout this project, I'm the main point of contact for Xcel Energy. I'm the project manager. Obviously, we have Tony Greinberg. He's our principal manager for North Dakota. Sean Paskey, he's our key account manager. Reach out to him. Jade Brown's our operations. He's in Fargo. Todd Hummel is in Fargo. So we've got a whole host of people available and ready to help and answer questions as they arise. So we thank you for this time. Is there any further questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Prerw or Mr. Greenberg?
Commission President Dartis, this is Dustin Scott.
Yes, City Engineer Dustin Scott. Yes, sir.
I guess, I just want to let the commission know our staff, engineering staff, has been working quite a bit, as Mr. Prerw alluded to, in coordinating the efforts here. I think there's still a few pieces of information that would be prudent not only to the commission but also the public. So I'm hoping, Tom, can you shed some light? I know Commissioner George had asked about closing roads down, but can you shed some light and give us a ballpark on how much pavement will be removed and where that's going to take place, and then about how long the public can start to expect those roads to be closed? That's part one. Then part two, you also mentioned some of that work being in the boulevard. Can you also share with the public and the commission about how many trees and how mature those trees are will have to be removed?
Okay, yep, we talked about both those things today with your staff, so that's good timing. Like I said, we'll have one short road closure right at City Hall to make a crossing from the east side of the street to the west side of the street. And then the remainder of the road closures will be on the side streets. So as we go south, it'll be Somerset, 10th, or 7th, 10th, et cetera, all the way down. Not at 13th, not at 14th, but all the other side streets will have a closure. A number of those we planned for the weekends, just to reduce the amount of traffic. And there's other smaller ones where we have access in and out where we'll just do it as we come across it. The amount of pavement review, so the amount of pavement and how much pavement we're tearing up is just at those intersections, basically. And it'll be a line going across the street, north to south. So, like I say, it'll just be the width of the side street intersections. If that makes sense.
Dustin, you just brought up the removal of trees. We're not talking about any large, trees, are we? Or are we talking about some of the smaller, less mature trees?
I can take that quick. We're not planning to take any trees. We routed them, I think, certainly the larger ones on the north end of the project, we've avoided those with the directional drill, so we're not getting near those.
Okay, good.
Huh? Good.
I wasn't thrilled to hear about removing large mature trees.
No, not the large ones for sure. And then on the small ones going south down south of 13th, there's a number of them along there. We should be outside of the drip line of those younger trees. And what we've already talked about is if some of those would die within the next 2 years, we'd certainly replace them to full value. So, like I say, all those trees where the sidewalks are, we're underneath the sidewalk, not where the trees are. And so hopefully we're outside where we'll do damage to them. We'll need to do some trimming and that type of stuff, but
okay, perfect.
Taking any out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Prerw, when you're going by the high school, what would be the approximate schedule in?
One of my goals on this project is not to mess up the school. So once we find out what their schedule for the spring is, whether they got in-person learning or not, we'll set that. But it'll be put upon us to, we're not going to have the road on the north and the south. We'll have those all wrapped up and everything done in front of the school during the summer. So we don't want to be anywhere near the school when the kids are there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions, commissioners?
I have one, Mayor.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
So when you said you're going to be underneath the sidewalk, will you be boring underneath the sidewalk, or will you be ripping up the sidewalk and then repouring new sidewalk?
No, we're going to tear them up and replace all the sidewalks.
Okay.
And additionally, there's a fence that goes all the way from 14th down to 19th about. Anyway, the fence that's real close to the road there, that's getting replaced too. Just not enough room to work with that fence there, so we'll take that fence down and get a new fence along that road.
That's on the east side of Cheyenne, correct?
Excuse me?
On the east side of Cheyenne.
9th.
Or 9th, okay. I meant 9th, my apologies.
Yeah, the east side of 9th.
This is the fence line that's experienced a lot of wind damage over the last several years.
Yeah, I should say between 17th and 14th.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
So, commissioners, if I may, again, this is City Engineer Dustin Scott. So, as you heard, there will be quite a bit of, call it, physical changes noticed by the public, and that's where we're certainly coordinating as best we can with Excel, which also brings me to another point that, this traditionally, when we work with utility companies on right-of-way permits to do some work. They're not as intensive as this particular project. You know, this particular project here is as large or even larger than some of our own capital improvement projects. And so things like the pavement removals and replacement, traffic control, removing and replacing sidewalks, boulevards, and all that good stuff. This is a pretty extensive project that's going to require a little more management effort, if you will. And so traditionally, we have, through the franchise agreement, we do have the ability to require our right-of-way permitting with this process. But again, I just want to make it fully aware for the commission that a traditional right-of-way permit takes a couple hours of staff time to administrate. This is going to take a lot of full-time effort to oversee things like shutting down a road, removing the pavement, putting the pavement back, making sure it's adhering to our specifications, making sure we understand where utilities are when roads are opened up. We have underground utilities that we need to protect and make sure we are keeping good inventory on, and of course, all the other surface work that's going to be done. So initiated some conversations with our attorney, John Shockley, and of course, he's suggested that we stay within the confines of our right-of-way permitting, but there might be certainly some additional costs that we bear, or might be able to work through with Xcel Energy on how to levy those types of costs within this permit. And again, just wanted to fully disclose that at this time before a lot of this work continues into next year. So, and again, I can certainly answer questions. We've been working with Xcel for the past 3-4 months on this, and again, it's been going well, but I just want to bring up some of those points, and again, I can certainly answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Commissioners, anybody have questions for Mr. Scott? Well, due to the scope of the project, we appreciate your diligence, Mr. Scott, that you stay on top of it. Any other questions for Mr. Prerw or Mr. Grinberg?
I just never knew that Mr. Grinberg was a Packer.
Oh, yeah.
1979.
Additional questions of Mr. Prerw? Thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate very much how closely you're working with engineering, as Mr. Scott has just indicated. We fully intend to continue to work with you, and we would expect that you to do the same. So please stay in contact.
Well, thank you. I will.
Thank you. Commissioners, this line item is informational only. We don't require a actionable item. We'll move on to item number 7. Cass County Public Health is to discuss the COVID vaccine. I had requested of Fargo Cass Public Health, to have someone to come in and talk to us about the vaccinations that are going to be coming in the near future. And of course, one of the primary questions that we have is our first responders, when they might be in line to be vaccinated. So it's my pleasure for me to introduce you tonight to Suzanne Schaefer from Fargo Cass Public Health. Suzanne, please take it away.
Good evening, and thank you for having me join you tonight to talk about COVID vaccine. I have just a kind of a brief overview of kind of where Cass County is at this point. Exciting news over the last 2 weeks. The week of December 14th, Pfizer vaccine came to North Dakota, and starting today, Moderna has arrived as well. We are, in reference to President Darda's comment on priority groups, that is partially what we are working on kind of every day, is making sure that we are reaching those priority groups that are established by ACIP, which is at the federal level, as well as the North Dakota Department of Health that has an ethics committee that puts out priority groups. So we have received, like I said, the state has 2 vaccines. We have Moderna and Pfizer. We will be starting to administer Moderna vaccine tomorrow to some of the first responders from West Fargo and Fargo. and some of the outlying communities as we work through the process of getting those first responders vaccinated. The vaccine we have, like I said, is Moderna. That is a 2-dose vaccine that is 28 days apart. So we will work on scheduling the first round as well as making sure we're doing reminders and working hard to get that second dose to those that have received the first, as we know that in order to get that 94.1% efficacy that they are showing, we need to get both doses in the recipients of the vaccine. So what has happened, what Fargo-Cass Public Health is doing, is we are working very hard to kind of get communication out and working things. And I was invited today, along with Dr. Nagpal, to talk to the City of West Fargo employees, which was a great opportunity to share some information. And we're working to get more information out about the vaccine. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation around it, so we're working hard to work on uptake and getting people to understand the science behind it. We also have worked closely with the healthcare partners in Cass County, the health systems, Sanford, Essentia, and those larger health systems, the VA. They are vaccinating their own staff. Long-term care is working closely with there's a federal partnership with CVS and Thrifty White to come and do staff and residents at the same time. Otherwise, there's other local pharmacies that are doing that as well. So that's been great partnerships for them. And so Fargo-Cass Public Health is not going into long-term care to do those vaccinations. That has been set up through other contracts, which is really a great plan for the community, because if we were all waiting for one entity to do that, it would really delay being able to get good coverage for the folks within Cass County. We have also been working with businesses, practices that are not connected with health systems, smaller clinics, just getting numbers, kind of determining what their uptake is. This is a vaccine under emergency use authorization. It cannot be mandated. And so we are just trying to kind of get interest within the community to determine how many vaccines we need to allocate to different areas. We will find out each Friday, roughly, what our vaccine allocations will be for the next week. So we have a very short window to plan who we're going to get those vaccine into. In our first week, which is next week, we have 300 doses. And so we do have those doses already allocated to specific people, and they are aware of that. They've been invited to get them, and those numbers are in place. We do know that as we're moving these vaccines out in this initial round and making sure we get the best coverage for our community, there will not be a charge at all for the vaccine. The vaccine is coming from the federal government with no charge, but there is opportunity to do some administration fees if you so choose. We have chosen to just make sure that we're getting coverage for our community, so there will not be a cost in place for that. So anybody who is wanting it, once we get to their priority group, will be able to get that. We are setting up a site. Like I said, we're inviting the priority groups that we get to that site to get vaccine. We are still waiting for continued priority groups to come out. ACIP met this last week when Moderna was kind of given the go-ahead on Friday, and set out some more phases moving forward. The next phase that they came out with was persons 75 years of age and older and frontline essential workers that are unable to work from home. However, that will now go through the North Dakota Ethics Committee, who will have a unified command of the state look at that to determine what will be pushed out through our state for guidance as far as priority groups. If we go back to the question about first responders, we are working to get that in place. We do know that, like I said, this week we will be seeing some first responders from West Fargo and some of the surrounding communities. The next couple of weeks, we are expecting very reduced allocations if we receive allocations, just because they are pushing towards long-term care staff and residents for 2 weeks, and then back to January 11th, we're expecting to get more of those regular allocations again. So we will wait each week to find out what that means for us, but we are reaching out to get those numbers from first responders, and we have a spreadsheet ready to go. So when we get allocations, we call down our spreadsheet and we can get people in. After we get through the priority groups that are being established, and right now 1A is the healthcare workers. That includes first responders and all healthcare workers. That's phase 1A, and it's got 5 tiers to it. And then there's the phase 1B, which I mentioned was the 75 years of age and older and frontline essential workers. as established by ACIP, and then there's phase 1C. But as we get through all these phases of priorities, at some point we'll get to community vaccination. And at that point, we will be working closely, again, with the pharmacies and other health partners in our community to work hard to get that vaccine out to get the best coverage in our community that we can. I am very open to any questions. If there's anything that I can answer, please feel free to ask me anything, and I'll do my best.
Questions for Mrs. Schaefer? Mrs. Fisk and I get 4 updates a week from Public Health. There's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, early morning one, and then there's a bigger one on. And I would like to extend my gratitude for the work that they've done of providing information with regard to the science. Has been amazing. And their dedication to this, the number of days that they've went without time off and hours of the day of which they're working, is we should be truly grateful to Fargo Public Health for what they have done for our community. So please pass that back on to Mrs. Fleming and all the great people at Public Health.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners? So could you speak to, are there test trials going on with regard to age? You know, there's one of the vaccines, 16 and older, one of them's 18 and older. So is there anything forthcoming or anything that's being tested that will be for younger recipients?
My understanding is that they do have trials going currently in regards to the younger populations. But yes, you're correct. The Pfizer vaccine is for 16 and older, and Moderna is for 18 and older at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Again, this was an informational item. We'll move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is in your packet regarding an amendment to the 2021 budget of custodial workers. Mr. Matt Advent, Public Works Director.
Good evening, Commissioner President and Commissioners. I'll share my screen here 1 second. Can you all see that?
Yes.
All right. I'm bringing this forward now because we've been looking at this for about a year, seeing, you know, what we've been paying for the custodial services for the different buildings and the library, and we kind of went through a few different options as we were looking for this, and we went out and got a few quotes from different contractors, and they, for the level of the cleaning that we wanted to, came back quite high. So we actually started looking at, well, what it would cost for us to just hire our own staff. And that's kind of what we settled on here. You know, if we hired our own staff, well, you know, we could do, make sure, you know, the spaces were, you know, clean every day. They sweep, mop, vacuum. They do the general maintenance and cleaning duties at the different buildings. We had the PD, City Hall, Public Works, Sanitation, and the library. Then do some, you know, light maintenance, mowing, weeding, lawn maintenance, outside care. They do after hours snow removal and, you know, like ice removal. You know, preferably what I was looking for is like, you know, after commission meetings and planning meetings, any kind of meetings we have at City Hall at night. We don't have anybody that's working there. At this point, we would have that custodial staff that would be able to take care of that. We did.
Excuse me, Matt?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you send us this overview position? Do we have this?
Yes, I did send that previously in the email I sent.
Okay, it's just not in the packet. It's in another email?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll look forward to it.
So we did work with HR, came up with a job description, and we sent it off to MRA, which is the grading agency, and they came back with a grade 5 for salary on this. What we kind of decided was about 4 custodial staff would work for us, just for the fact that, with vacations, sick leave, different things, and the amount of square footage that we'd need to clean, that we felt we'd need that, which would get us about 160 hours per week with the 4 people working. Currently, our annual cost is about $92,000 for cleaning services at City Hall, Police Department, and Sanitation and Public Works. And then also, the library has a cleaning service contract for about $34,800. And this is, I had a typo on the commission memo earlier. I think I just said the total was 126,000 even, and it should be 126,800. That was brought to my attention that I had that error earlier. And this gives us cost, for what we're currently paying, about $32.95 per hour. Using 74 hours a week is about what they are normally doing right now. Our cost with benefits and salary would be about $166,000 for 4 staff. That would give us the 160 hours a week of cleaning, so we'd almost double our hours of cleaning. And with that, it gets us to about $19.99 per hour, which is about 39% cheaper than we currently at an hourly rate. We did look at if we just hired 3 people, but when we looked at the level of service that we'd need, the library would still probably have to provide their own contract. And we'd only be able to do public works, sanitation, PD, and the City Hall with only 3 staff. So it wouldn't save us, as much, but it would still be less than the $32 per hour that we currently are paying.
Matt?
Yep.
I'm sorry if I could interrupt. Why would we not just take over the library as well then?
Yeah, that's why I'm recommending the 4.
Okay, for some reason I don't have this.
Okay.
That breakdown. Is there a way someone there, Melissa, could send that to me? I can look at it.
Okay, yeah, because I sent a brand new one this morning to everybody as well, one with the updated numbers.
Okay, I don't have that, so I know that. I'm looking now, and there's nothing here, so.
Okay.
Let me see, cleaning. I have something from you, Matt. It says cleaning personal proposal, but there's nothing in here.
Okay.
So I'm not certain where it went. Here we go. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I just have your breakdown. I'm sorry, Commissioners, I don't have this portion though, which is the presentation.
Right.
Okay, keep going, that's fine. I'll deal with it.
All right. I guess the kind of the pros that we're looking for this is, the better quality of service. We have a little bit more quality control over that, being our employees. We would be able to kind of get feedback from the different department heads, different buildings to see what they need done and if there's any kind of special things they need. Would allow more hours to be spent at the facilities cleaning. We kind of break it down as what we were planning was about 80 hours a week we would figure out PD and City Hall, and then 40 hours would go to the library and 40 hours would be Public Works and Sanitation as well. Just as we move forward, in the coming years, we might be adding some more buildings. This would be able to, with this staffing level, we'd still be able to, I think, bring any more buildings on. A few more buildings, we'd be able to do it with 4 people as well. And I guess we can stop sharing this right now, but really going forward, with the COVID right now, we have been doing some disinfecting, sanitizing cleanings. They come in on, once or twice a week, do that. We would be able to do that pretty much 2 to 3 times a week with our staff if we were to get these 4 additional employees. So that would, definitely a cost savings that way as well. And it would also free up our current maintenance staff to get to do more of their own maintenance stuff. Right now, they kind of get called and pulled off to do some janitorial things as well. So this way they can get back to actually doing maintenance, and we'd be actually saving some contract cost where we haven't been calling contractors to do some of our maintenance currently because our guys don't have the time to do it. So this way it would free up our maintenance staff to do kind of what they were hired to do and give us a little bit better level of cleaning, a little bit more control on how we're going to do that. These staff members would be under our fleet and facilities department under Public Works, and they'd be directly supervised by our lead facility maintenance tech. So he would work with our maintenance technicians and the custodial staff to work on their schedules and see if there's any kind of, cross training we can do. But for the most part, it just kind of gives us a little bit more flexibility in our facilities maintenance department. So I'll open up for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Anvik?
I think this is probably more of a comment than a question, but I'm kind of a numbers guy, Matt, and the one thing that stuck out that's slightly off is that it's not really 160 hours a week when we factor in sick time, vacation time, stuff like that. I mean, which does change that hourly rate. I still think your argument probably is solid, but 4 people does not equal 160 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. So.
Right, correct.
Any additional questions for Mr. Anvik?
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Since the quality of the cleaning that we have under contract right now hasn't been meeting our standards, we don't have any kind of repercussions for them, or I don't know what the proper word would be to get them to clean to our standards. I'm just curious as to why we've not been able to get to there, but I do believe your numbers are solid and that. I'm just curious as to why we can't get better cleaning.
We talked about.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
Go ahead, Gina.
Well, I'm only going to tell it to you from the I've been here a little longer type version. We have had this cleaning company for a number of years. We had one before that was all right. We've worked with this company. The gentleman that had the position that Tony has in buildings and grounds worked with this company. We started a journal where they would check it every day for issues and things in different buildings that were forgotten. And no matter what we did, nothing has changed. The only reason we've kept with them is because to go with anybody else is even more expensive. And I know a couple commissioners in the past had asked me, why didn't we go with our own staff? And at the time I was like, we got enough stuff going on. I don't know that we're quite ready for that. So when Matt and his staff brought this forward, I thought, if you look around City Hall and, Commissioner Simmons can attest to what the outside used to look like, on some of the inside, it's not City Hall and our city buildings, all of them need to be taken care of because it's taxpayer dollars that are paying for those. And it's not a very clean environment some days. So historically, this has been a long time issue that hasn't been solved by switching companies. So, and then I'll let Matt speak. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's a good point. Really, I think the issue is a lot of time we had quite a few conversations with them this year, and really for them, it's a staffing issue. They don't get the same staff. He's kind of changing people in and out, so they might not know to get to IT this time, or it's all depending on who the staff is, and that's why if we have our own staff, we just have a little bit more control. They get more used to the environment that they're in, where they need to go, and then we get that feedback from the department heads too. Hey, if something is missed, we can correct it right away.
Mayor.
It's Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. Yeah, as Gina alluded to, before this commissioner came on, I actually asked her to do a study on the costs and look for a new company. And it was so expensive to find anybody out there in this business. They definitely know what to charge, and even with that, we have to supply the cleaning product. So I definitely understand it, Matt. My question is more of the pay scale that they're on, and how does that reflect with other city employees as far as, you know, the grade that we gave them? Do you know, or Tina?
With the grade they gave them, this is on the lower end of where we're at on any of the, I guess, at Public Works, this would be kind of the lowest end salary that would be out there. It is kind of in line with some of the other jobs that are out there for the cleaning, and that's why we send it to our outside consultant to kind of confirm that rating of the scale of where to be at. The rating actually sets it up really nicely for our fleet facilities department, actually, because it would be a good step up if we do get somebody in and say this position that has training and wants to move up to a maintenance tech position. They can move up within the city and stick around. That would be a little bit more ideal of a job for somebody that does want to get within the city and work their way up as well.
Obviously, a great opportunity for them to move anywhere within the city, I mean, up the line. So.
Yeah.
I'll just say this quick. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. I had asked you a question earlier in an email, but I just want to ask it again for the public. You said around, I think it's about 22,000 additional above what was budgeted. And so can you just reiterate where those funds will be coming from?
Yes, because we're asking for a budget amendment. So buildings and grounds, or fleet facilities, is being funded out of the general fund. And actually, I see Jim Larson jumped on there. Jim, if you want to take this one.
Thank you, Matt. Be glad to. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a budget amendment, so it would expand the expenditures we have in our budget. We would just, part of it, we would try to underspend some in our contingencies. We also have revenues that will exceed our current projections, and so we believe that this would still be a budget neutral position. As it does fit, it does address multiple issues within the public works area.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. That being said, I have one concern, Matt, and that is this. So at the present time, we're dealing with the COVID situation where we're doing a lot of extra sanitation and cleaning up distribution tables and all that type of thing. As we move forward and we're not in this, are we going to be overstaffed by having 4 people? You know, I've been here at City Hall many times late at night when the cleaning services are there. And I don't check for the cleanliness of it. I know that they're there. I do know that they have one special piece of equipment when it comes to the tile floors. Are we going to have to purchase that? But again, my biggest concern is the staffing, being that we're not going to be doing all that sanitation and things if and when we get back to our normal. And then the other item is I want all department heads to understand that an amendment to a past budget is obviously we need to be flexible and we need to be addressing the issues as they come at us. But I've been elected for 3 years plus, and this is the 3rd major one this year, and we didn't have any in years previous. So I realize this is extraordinary times of what we're dealing with. But I want to caution everybody that, you know, these amendments of $100,000 plus to our already approved budgets are a concern of mine. Just want to throw that out there if you want to know where I'm coming from sometime. So that being said, please address the issue with regard to the amount of sanitation and extra things that we're doing right now to keep our staff and our public safe. Are you concerned about overstaffing?
No, I'm not.
Oh, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Okay. That was the first thing when we talked about it, and that was when I was talking to Tony, I was like, the first thing is can we keep them busy, right? Can we keep this amount busy? And with the amount of work that our maintenance guys are doing currently, with the janitorial stuff, we would have no problem keeping them busy, even if we weren't doing any kind of the different sanitizing or, you know, with the distribution tables for the COVID hand sanitizer stations. But, you know, I think we would just be able to do a better job cleaning. We'd be able to do they'd be able to do light maintenance, you know, changing light bulbs, different, you know, kind of deep cleaning, annual cleanings that they could do to do that. Plus, we have a lot of times that there's any kind of like special events that maybe PD or at City Hall, at the library doing, they would be able to set up with that after hours where they wouldn't have to do that. Any kind of office moves, furniture moves, instead of our staff kind of doing that, we'd be able to do that after hours with these employees. Plus, you know, summers they would be able to do some of that lawn care maintenance and free up our maintenance guys. Instead of, you know, mowing lawn, they can be taking care of the different lift stations out there, or, you know, just our HVAC system and just doing their maintenance checks. It really gives us more flexibility into, you know, our maintenance staff. I mean, right now we have 6 buildings and numerous other lift station buildings around town with 3 people only handling it. So, and they run into some jobs where they need more than, you know, just 2 people or 3 people to work at that, where maybe we can, you know, grab a couple of these people and have them, you know, kind of help them out for that time. So I don't believe that we would have a problem keeping them busy. Actually, I'm sure they would have plenty to do. We kind of came up with a few different things. We have a couple of checklists for them that they'd kind of go off of on what they need to be done, you know, monthly, weekly, daily, annually as well. And I, you know, we started looking at this early, but kind of with COVID hit, we were unable to get any kind of other contractors in to give us the prices. So that's kind of pushed us off. So we missed our budget deadline back in June. So I appreciate you guys hearing us out on this this time.
Thank you, Matt.
President Dardis, I'd like to make one comment. Considering all we've learned from COVID, I think there's going to be heightened sanitary procedures that we owe to all of our staff ongoing even after COVID. I mean, I think there's a level of expectation that we have now that we probably didn't have as much before. We didn't, for whatever reason, we just weren't as concerned. People always are going to want the sanitizer. They're going to want to see things clean. But Matt's comments are extremely important for all the different tasks that there are out there. He sees it, his staff sees it. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Anyone else? Any more questions?
I just have one again, Mayor. So, Matt, what are you asking for 4 custodial, or are you asking for 3?
I'm asking for 4. I think that would be the best, the fit, I guess, you know, the best value, I guess, for what we want to do with that custodial position, and I guess the best benefit in keeping the buildings in the best shape that we can.
And that would include the library then, correct?
That would include the library, correct.
Okay, because I do agree that you know, we should have all under one. We shouldn't have the library by themselves.
Correct. That
would be a concern. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any other comments? How would you like to proceed?
Make a motion to approve the 4 custodial staff.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Olson. It's been moved and seconded to amend the budget for buildings and grounds, public works, to add 4 custodial workers and terminate the contract of our existing cleaning company. Is there any further discussion?
Other than one, is there any issues, John Shockley, with terminating them? Are we going to run into any problems?
No, I don't believe that we would.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
If
on that, I think in the contract, I think we have 30 days. We just have to give them 30 days notice. You know, it'll take us a little while to get our own staff on board, but we'll definitely have that straightened out in the timeline before we start.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Hearing none. All those in favor of adding 4 custodial workers by amending the Public Works budget and terminating the existing contractor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9. Lauren Orchard, Economic Development Director. The notation on the agenda says 5 houses on Cheyenne.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, and good evening, Commissioners. In front of you this evening is an opportunity to purchase a 42,000 square foot block of property fronting Cheyenne Street to help downtown businesses and promote community-driven development. And to share with you where that is, I'm going to share my screen with you all. You all see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. The area being considered is comprised of 5 properties on the corner of 5th Avenue and Cheyenne Street that are collectively for sale at $1.3 million. When the listing was public earlier this year, the 5 property owners approached the city as a potential buyer, and as a result, commissioners and city staff began to consider the community benefits of purchasing the block. At first, staff considered the immediate benefits to businesses that could come from constructing a temporary parking lot on this property. The additional parking access could draw customers shopping at local businesses during an otherwise disruptive construction season. Additionally, if owned by the city, this block could be reconfigured during road diet construction to add permanent on-street parking and cohesive sidewalks, which is currently prevented by the driveways bisecting the 2 properties facing Cheyenne Street. Beyond these immediate benefits in 2021, the city could also use the property to foster development by using the land value and cost savings related to road diet coordination to incentivize desired projects outlined in the West Fargo 2.0 plan. With these community benefits and time-related cost savings in mind, city staff and 2 commission representatives met with the property owners and negotiated the asking price of $1.3 million down to $1.15 million plus closing costs, saving $150,000 up front. It is also important to mention that the assessed valuation of these properties that otherwise might be used to guide purchases made by the city is not completely representative of their value, considering the rapid increase in sale price experienced throughout the city in 2020, the value of having all 5 properties assembled for purchase already, the block's frontage along Cheyenne Street, and the unique redevelopment being experienced in the downtown area. For these various reasons, staff believe that the purchase price of $1.15 million plus closing costs is a fair negotiated price, especially considering the public benefit that would be created through the future use of the property. In addition to the purchase price, the cost to clear the lots has also been considered, with staff receiving quotes for environmental due diligence, lot clearing, temporary parking lot construction, and water utility installation for an additional $290,000. These costs take into account asbestos testing and potential asbestos remediation. The total combined cost to acquire and clear the lots for a parking lot and then for redevelopment is estimated to be $1,474,500. This total cost for a 42,000 square foot block is less than half the typical city investment that has been spent on developing similar properties in the area. The city would also have the ability to further reduce this cost by having work billed as time and materials with a not-to-exceed limit, and can forego the typical city charge of depositing debris at the inert landfill. With these cost savings experienced by the city to get these properties shovel-ready for development, the true incentive to future developers will be the cost of land acquisition, assembly, clearing, and basic utility tie-ins. By using these costs to the city as the incentive for future development, the city would free up cash for the developer to invest more in their project, making a better, higher value product that could be taxed immediately. In addition to creating this new type of incentive for development that does not use TIF or tax abatement, the city can be selective rather than reactive to development in this core targeted area. In closing, this opportunity to strategically benefit downtown businesses and facilitate community-driven development without impacting property taxes or special assessments is supported by the Economic Development Department. And to open this item up to discussion, the request for commission consideration would be to authorize and direct the city administrator to enter into purchase agreements with each of the 5 property owners at a purchase price of $230,000 each plus closing costs, with move-out dates to be negotiated on an individual basis, and to approve a lot clearing and site preparation budget of $290,000. And with that, I, along with other staff involved in this project, are here for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Orchard. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have a question, Mayor.
Commissioner Simmons.
Actually, I have 2, and then I'll be done. First question is, Lauren, how did you come up with this $230,000 per home when some of those homes are worth like $148 or $149 and some are worth $200? I'm just curious how you come up with that amount for each home and they're willing to accept that.
I think that's an excellent question, Commissioner Simmons. Thank you. So the starting base point was that $1.3 million total. All of the 5 property owners were selling the properties as a commercial lot, and that was their starting point. And so City Administrator Fisk and 2 commissioners, we went to meet with homeowners, and that was really the starting point, was that price point. So at the time, we had a sheet produced that had their assessed value for each of the homes, and we actually started there. We started with what the assessed value was for each of the homes, and that didn't really get us anywhere. And so through the negotiations with those property owners, we landed at $20,000 less than the $250,000 that we started with. So that was a negotiated down price. But like I mentioned before in the presentation, it is really difficult to start with the assessed value as the baseline because that is just a snapshot in time, and it is not actually the reality that those property owners are facing for what they could get for their properties. And the really unique situation we have here is that all 5 are selling at the same time. The assembly of the properties has basically been completed for us, so it is not only the value of each singular lot that we're considering, it's the overall value of having them assembled together. So I hope that's helpful in explaining the price point.
Not really.
I just want to jump in real quick too. Wasn't it $200 per house with $30,000 for relocation? And the reasoning is it's extremely difficult to find a new property or a different home for under $200,000. So wasn't that why we ultimately came to that? Is so they could get into another place?
That was fundamentally a way that we could get to a shared price point, was offering that relocation assistance. And a huge part of that was in talking to each of these property owners. They shared with us the difficulty in finding another place for them within West Fargo because of our higher property values, which is a good, healthy sign for the city, but makes it very difficult for each of these property owners, despite each of them wanting to move. So there are a number of reasons why we arrived at that number, but fundamentally I would say I would encourage the commission to consider this as what it will be and what the value is to the community that is above and beyond what we could really just see in the assessed value.
Sorry,
Commissioner Simmons.
So again, though, I guess I'm going to ask you the blunt question. It's either yes or no. The individuals that have a home there that's worth about $195 or whatever, $198, is going to take $230, just like the guy's house that's worth $148. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that was a condition of them selling. So each of them.
Sorry, Lauren.
That's okay.
The same thing I was going to say. I'll let Lauren talk, and then
Yeah, okay. And that's a great question, Commissioner Simmons. Thank you. So that was a condition of all of them selling collectively, which goes back to that point that I have about the assemblage of the properties. Developers often struggle with piecing together properties, especially when they're neighbors. And we have a unique situation before us where all of the property owners have actually agreed to sell at the same price. rather than having to negotiate. And so I think that that may have actually led to a cost savings for the city, rather than having to wait for, for example, the property in the middle to sell and them demanding a higher price. So the fact that they all came together with the same price and have all agreed with each other that no matter the value of their home, that they want to sell at the same price, I think that was actually a cost savings to the city and a time savings to the city, and I think really helped with the negotiation.
Okay, so I'm going to bypass all that. My concern now then is if this goes through, okay, I notice that you're going to put gravel on that parking lot. What happens when we get a flash flood or we get rain this summer and we need that for parking then? That's what the purpose is here.
Sure.
I guess I'm concerned that we're only going to put gravel on it. That's my concern.
Sure, and that's very valid. And we actually asked that question about what are the things that would make this a good lot, not just a temporary lot that might be dangerous. And so included in that cost is a drain in case there is a flood event like that. And so there's about $15,000 that has been built in for that cost. But actually, Matt and Vic helped put together some of that pricing. So Matt, if you'd like to respond to any of that, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, Lauren, I can. We were just looking at that. Make sure I'm on. Yeah, we were just looking at that today, and actually we were probably saying, we probably put some millings on top of there instead of just having the gravel. We actually have quite a bit of a milling pile back behind Public Works, so that would be at no cost. It would just be the cost to haul it there from Public Works to there, which is maybe a 10-minute haul.
Is it way too much to put like asphalt down or something like that on that to make, to guarantee that we're going to have it for parking? I mean, what's the cost for something like that?
I don't want to say that you're probably looking at, top of my head, probably about $20,000 in cost to probably do something like that. And that would probably be a little bit bigger of a project than we'd be able to take on with the machinery we have to lay that down. But I think if we did, a gravel base, put a drain in there, and then, put 4 to 5 inches of millings on top, that way it's a lot. If we did get a bunch of rain, it's not going to be, kind of mushy or, sometimes gravel gets when it gets soaked. Those millings that hold up a lot better. It's basically just recycled asphalt.
The other consideration, Commissioner Simmons, would be the cost to then rip up whatever we put there when the new development comes in. So that's just another consideration, and to think about it more as a temporary lot than as a permanent one, because the goal really would be for redevelopment. But that's an excellent question again. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions also, Ms. Orchard, as I wasn't one of the commissioners that met with the property owners. First and foremost, that property's been for sale for over a year. There was a large 4x8 sign advertising it for sale, all 5 properties. That's come down now, and I believe only one property owner has a for sale sign up at this time. And so private investors have had an opportunity to buy this land, be a part of this discussion, and they haven't entered into that. And we, as the city, have entered into that discussion. And I guess my questions are a couple. Why? What are we going to do with the land? And I realize it's for speculation that we're going to use that as an incentive to try and leverage a developer. With that being said, I'd say we already have existing tools to do that. We have economic development tools that we use all the time. They've been used on Cheyenne Street. They've been used at the lights for extensive terms, as well as a lot of dollars. And all of us have had some feedback with regard to that the amount of money that the city has invested to bring these developments in. Now, I'm not here to criticize what's been done in the past or where we may be headed with this one. But if the private sector has not taken advantage of these homes being for sale Why would the city of West Fargo do with it? And then the other thing that comes into my mind is that we are still in this COVID pandemic. And when you put out an RFP to developers, to construction companies, to whomever, manpower and workforce shortages is a real issue. I talk to contractors all the time, and they're having some really serious issues with getting people to come to work, or people are getting infected, or the kids are, and so they have to miss work, they have to quarantine and all that. And I realize someday that this might go, this is going to go away in the future. But we have existing incentive tools for economic development. Why are they not adequate? Why private hasn't entered into this agreement? Because these have been for sale for over a year, and it's been well noted on Main Street. Why should the public, why should the city of West Fargo get into it? And with the COVID issue, this could be a 2 or 3 years where we're going to hold this, where we've made an investment of, as you've pointed out, $1,474,500. So you can garner by my questions. I am not in favor of this investment, not at this point in time. We could revisit it in the future, but the other thing is the sale of the houses. We have the assessed value of these homes, and as Commissioner Simmons has said, some of them are at 143, 147, something like that, and we're paying them $230. I think that we would have a public outcry if we paid that much more over what the market assessed value is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dardis. I would like to just take the opportunity to respond to some of your questions, and if you have additional, please let me know. So the why and why would we do this instead of other incentives? I would say primarily this is cheaper than other incentives we've been able to do downtown in respect to the overall cost of the community. So our typical incentive in this area has cost us $3 million, and this is half of that cost. And so just right off the bat, if we're assuming that we would get similar development, it is a lot lower cost overall.
Is the $3 million that you're referencing for the 3 buildings that are now on Main, or is it for the 3 buildings, or on Cheyenne, that are on Cheyenne, plus the Bell property is $3 million?
No, each separate one was around $3 million was the average. So yes, each separate one. Yep. And so those are very similar development scenarios and physical geographic spaces that we have spent double on using different incentives. The other comment I would make about just the structure of how other incentives work has made it more difficult to use as a tool for us going forward. Both TIF and tax abatement, they need to go before the school and the county for approval. And so this incentive is a complete alternative where the city really gets to determine what type of development goes there without having to go through those processes, which is also often a hindrance to developers. Developers that I've spoken with, they would rather know what the community wants in a location. They would rather have the zoning be correct for what the community wants in that location. And they want to know what the incentive is up front rather than having to jump through the hoops of an incentive once they have the project teed up for them. So there are all of these elements that developers are looking for that I think have prevented them from acquiring this particular set of properties. There are also elements that the city can experience the cost savings in as we do demolition that a developer could not. I think that we could save between $60,000 and $100,000 that I didn't mention in the financial analysis just by aligning it with the road diet, which also goes to your question on timing. Why now? I don't want to mislead any commissioners. It is always a risk when you purchase property. That will always be the case, and I cannot change that risk. But what I can say is that the timing of the road diet allows us significant cost savings when it comes to things like capping utilities and installing new utilities, which a developer otherwise would have to come and dig up the newly done road diet project to do. So we would be able to prevent some of those coordination issues that otherwise we would just have to rely on the development community taking on that burden. And it also allows us to be proactive in how we seek out development. I currently don't have a tool that allows me to go knock on the doors of developers outside of the community. And even within the community, it's quite difficult because we don't have properties that we are in control over, where we have total control over what it is zoned, what the price of the property is, and what the incentive offered on the property is. And go ahead, Tina. Did you have something to say?
I just wanted to throw this in there, not to interrupt you, but in 2018, when Berg Auto sold, with the building on it, it sold for $29 a square foot. And they still have to tear the building down. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a comparison to what we're looking at. Sorry, Lauren.
No worries.
At the same thing this evening, we had a tax abatement request that they wanted their land with no buildings on it taxed at $2.50 a square foot, and it's presently at $10 a square foot. And if you do the math on this project, it's over $35 a square foot.
And I think that that is a wonderful example about why infill development is so difficult for the development community to accomplish. When prices are that high in downtown areas and you have to demolish it, if I were a developer, I would look at a greenfield site before I would look at that infill project. So that's, I think, why we haven't seen movement on these properties, but that is also why I think it warrants city involvement. I think to your comment before, Commission President Dardis, about why don't we let the free market take care of it, we certainly can do that. We can certainly rely on the free market, but I would caution that that would just take us a lot more time, 20 to 30 years perhaps, to see these properties develop. And so I think in a proactive community where we want to target development, this is a really nice tool for us to say, we want economic development here, we want redevelopment here, and this is the way we're going to do it.
So you made a wonderful comment earlier, Ms. Orchard, that I appreciate very much. And we have a development to the north of this in the Bell Bank properties that's going, and I don't know the exact construction date. I know that there's been discussion about putting it back a year or whatever. But your comment is what the city wants, and that's a very valid argument on your part. That's a great thing to say. But I'm going to caution us again, because we are where we are with the COVID and all of those situations. Remind me how many stories the Bell Bank project is going to be. Is it going to be 7 or is it going to be 8? I've heard both.
8.
We also, I believe, have EPIC representatives on the call if they would like to clarify where it is right now. And I just saw Amy chime in.
But I'm going to make my point is it's a great facility. It's a great project. We're excited about that. But the entire first floor is commercial space, and then there's different levels of housing and there's parking in that facility. So again, to go to your point is what the city wants. We're going to have a lot of retail space available on Cheyenne Street. So if we're talking about, is in your vision, are we looking at residential housing on this new parcel of property? And I realize your response is going to be somewhat to whatever the developer proposes to us is what we'll look at. But we're going to have a lot of commercial space on Cheyenne Street that needs to be leased out by various developers. So what does the city want to put on this property?
And that's a fantastic comment and consideration, and being able to sell the properties and ask that question would be a fantastic opportunity for both my department and for the planning department. We have developed West Fargo 2.0 hand in hand with the community, and I think that a struggle that we may have if we don't use development tools in a proactive way is dreaming these progressive dreams and not being able to put them into action with development tools. And so I would say I don't want to label this property with a specific picture of what the development should be, because I'm sure I will eat crow later. But I would envision things that West Fargo 2.0 points out, like diverse housing stock. We don't only want to have apartment units downtown, and we don't only want to have single-family residential, for example. That is something that's been mentioned, so potentially townhomes. There was an idea of potentially a grocery store so that residents in that area have a place to shop for groceries. So I think that there are there are options for us to explore as we go through the request for proposals process. But I would say that we don't get to do that exploration in a proactive way unless we go through a process like this where we're able to actually RFP the property out. The alternative to this method is trying to go solicit a developer to compile properties for us, potentially paying twice as much for that compilation to happen, and then being responsive to what that developer is envisioning based on who their investors might be. So that would be my response.
Thank you.
One comment, Mayor, if I could make it, I misspoke. It's actually, as of now, 7 stories high. And of course, we all know it's still owned by Bell, just so everybody knows that. And once, if Epic does go through with the purchase, which we hope they do, they will have 30,000 square feet of vacant commercial space as well. So the mayor's right, there's going to be a lot of commercial space open down there, and it probably will take a while to fill it up.
I see that Ms. Haas is on, is checked in. Ms. Haas is an officer with Epic Companies. Amy, would you like to say something?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, just fine.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to comment that Mark is correct. We do not own that Bell site yet. We have the verbal agreement in place, but nothing written. It is going to be, our plans are still a 7-story building. However, with COVID this last year and now the road diet coming up, we're just kind of deciding the best thing to do. We have over 5,000 square feet of vacant commercial space at Pioneer Place right now. We have the firm coming online February 1 with about 7,000 square feet and no prospective tenants. We actually had a bar restaurant back out and they have 0 interest now, unfortunately. And then we have an office, a bigger office on our Cheyenne Plaza 3rd floor coming available as well. That is not more engineering, that is our individual offices. So as far as Bell Bank site goes right now, I guess I don't want to make any hard dates or anything. We're kind of looking at what we currently have for commercial and how we can currently help our current tenants as we navigate through COVID and the road diet. And I'm open for any questions if anybody has anything.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haas. A very nice job. Any commissioners, any questions for us? All right, thank you for joining us this evening. Any other additional questions, comments for Mrs. Fisk or Ms. Orchard with regard to the 5 houses on Cheyenne as it is listed on our number 9 of our agenda?
I would have just a few comments, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Jervig.
So, my first thought, as the questions that, when we were talking about the value, I do think it's important. Yes, those houses haven't sold on the open market during a pandemic with a pending construction project coming next year. There's a lot of uncertainty there, and I do think the city has the capability to look past the pandemic, in terms of our actions, maybe more so than some organizations do. I do also think, and commend Lauren, this is a creative idea. The city promised in March $5 million of taxpayer money, most of it sales tax money, I believe, but to the Bell project if it moves forward. Now, granted, that comes with 2 floors of parking, but parking that the developer needs as well. If we look at the amount of money it costs to buy out the old VFW and tear it down, and those projects, I don't think we're necessarily getting a bad deal at what has been presented here. And I do think it brings forth a creative way to be able to create an incentive down the road, and it might be 2 or 3 years, to drive further development that doesn't that immediately puts those property taxes on the tax roll, doesn't require us to have to go and have the schools and all these other entities give up tax money in terms of a TIF or something like that. So I think it's a very creative solution.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
My only other comment would be the location. If this was over by Furniture for Less, or if this was the funeral home, I mean, to me, that's much better locations than what we're looking at. But I understand, I guess I understand it, and creative is, I always like to go that way. Unfortunately, I don't like the way this one went, but Lauren, I want you to know I understand what you're doing, and maybe I'm just going to be stubborn on this one, but because I can't sit here and say I don't believe in creativity. That's all we got where we are today downtown. So keep pushing, I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. I appreciate that.
I just want to make one comment. The 5 owners of these properties came to us. We didn't go to them looking to buy in the first place, is the way I've been told, right?
That's correct.
They collectively decided on a price, and we didn't want to go that high. So that group met. We got them to lower it, but again, they approached us on buying this property. Is it the best location? Well, it's the only one that's up for sale right now, and like you said, Lauren, we can be the driving force on how this ends up being developed. Whether we turn around and sell it to, another developer, and then we don't have to go through the TIFs like we did with the other properties, we will save money in the long run rather than giving up tax money for 10, 15 years to different entities. So I guess my crystal ball says it's a good deal at this time. Even though we are in COVID, you think about with the vaccinations coming in, the vaccine being available, things should look better, and we'll be done with the road diet, right, Dustin? And maybe the future, the outlook of everybody's is going to be a positive rather than being negative, and it'll be a win-win for the city.
Yeah, I'm the only one that hasn't made many comments here, so I'll just jump in. I think every single person that has spoke has made some extremely valid points. So, I mean, as far as the mayor spoke about, concerns with too much commercial space open, concerns with COVID, how long are we going to hang on to that? Definitely valid concerns, in my opinion. And then plus, the cost of the properties, are we overpaying? Valid concerns. But I think ultimately, to offer an incentive that's half of what we've been paying before, and to be able to move forward with our city's 2.0 vision, make this a more beautiful space, and the opportunities to bring in, new developers that we haven't seen before. I just think there's too many positives. The positives outweigh the negatives for me in this situation.
What's your pleasure, Commissioners?
I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of the 5 homes.
Commissioner George moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to move forward on the purchase of these 5 properties on Cheyenne Street. Is there any further discussion?
Can I get a roll call, please, Mayor?
Certainly, I'll respect that. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner George?
Aye.
Commissioner Jurdevig?
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons?
No.
Commissioner Dartis votes no. The motion passes on a 3-2 vote. Next order of business is item number 10, the Economic Development COVID Response for Business Presentation. Ms. Orson.
Excuse me, Mayor. Could we take maybe just a couple-minute break break?
Commissioner George requests a few minutes break.
For that.
We have a break for 5 minutes.
a reminder that the recording is paused, but we are still live.
Can you play elevator music?
I think Melissa should have to sing.
I think we all know that's not a good idea.
Charlie, are you ready to rock and roll?
I believe I am.
Very good.
And that's exactly what it's going to be like.
I hope so. What else have I been waiting all evening for, huh?
Right. You're controlling the screen, right? So you'll put the stuff up?
I'm going to do that right now.
Commissioner Simmons, I can't see you, and I can't see Commissioner George. Are you back from your break?
I am back, yes.
Yes, I am.
Good. All right, we'll reconvene the December 21st West Fargo City Commission meeting. The next order of business is a report from Economic Development with regard to the COVID response for business. I asked Ms. Orchard to do this, and she's readily done this, and she's called on some other experts within the community to also share some of their business sector experience and what's transpiring. So with that, Ms. Orchard.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners. Over the past week or so, I have heard from each one of you to some degree asking about how we've been supporting our community during COVID, especially struggling businesses. So I wanted to provide an overview of how the Commission and staff have supported our businesses and what support we have received through the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the State of North Dakota's distribution of CARES Act. So I will give a short presentation of what the city has done and then turn it over to Charlie Johnson, president of the CVB. We had also planned to welcome Courtney Jensen from the North Dakota Department of Commerce, but she had to hop off the call to meet with the Attorney General's office. So we will try to do our best to fill in for her. So to start off, the City Commission at the beginning of the pandemic offered relief to businesses with liquor licenses, allowing alcohol delivery from March 25th onward, allowing for the sale and delivery of sealed cans or bottles of alcoholic beverages via takeout, curbside delivery, drive-through, etc. Each time this action was considered, it was met with no opposition, showing your support of our businesses that really needed our help. The Commission also waived liquor license renewal fees for 2020, which are otherwise due each June 1st. The estimated value of these licenses that the city forewent was about $70,000. This too was met with no opposition, showing the Commission's support of these businesses early on. In addition to this Commission action, staff created a $100 gift card giveaway to 5 winners in March to help reignite local shopping right at the beginning of the pandemic. Beyond these early actions, your Economic Development Department has been actively meeting with bankers, developers, and business owners since April to talk about the impacts of COVID on their businesses, their clients, and their future plans, checking in on common issues and how best to meet their needs. Through each of these interactions, the common support requested was to wait for state and federal assistance, which could be more impactful than local programs, and to keep them informed of each new available grant. While following this common advice, staff also explored a grant program to help transition West Fargo businesses to online sales, but through further investigation found that NDSU provided the service for free. We also worked diligently to bring the Downtown Business Association back together so that they could have a common voice during such a difficult time, which has resulted in a strong business-led restart this fall. While more recent efforts did not take Commission action, I can assure you that we are making ourselves available to businesses, and if common solvable issues were present, I would be a direct advocate for that community. With that overview of city involvement, I would like to introduce Charlie Johnson from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, whose organization also supported West Fargo businesses, particularly hotels. So Charlie, the floor is all yours, and here is your slide.
Okay, thank you, Lauren, commissioners, and other city officials. It's good to be with you tonight. Early on when the pandemic started, actually immediately after the shutdown began back in March, our marketing team revised our website to feature COVID-19 information for our stakeholders. They added a comprehensive guide for restaurants offering curbside pickup and takeout, and is continually updated with that information. So we continue to do that on a regular basis. Also, within a week or two after that initial shutdown, our marketing team established a $3,000 restaurant gift card giveaway. Basically, we gave away 60 $50 gift cards over the course of a few weeks through a social media campaign, and the winners that were picked through that campaign got to pick whatever bar or restaurant they wanted to have their gift card at, and we bought that for them there. So our marketing team was running around town quite a bit, but it worked out well early on. And then in May, the CVB partnered with the Chamber, the DCP, and the FM Area Foundation to establish and manage what came to be called the Hospitality for Healthcare Fund. This was a fund that was established to drive $15 discounts for any properly identified healthcare worker or first responder in the community. The CVB put $9,000 into that, as did the Chamber, Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo Chamber. And then we also, Jim Parsons and I in particular, I think, spent a lot of time raising other money. The fund ended up with about $45,000, which went toward those $15 discounts. The idea was to pump money back into the restaurant community, provide discounts for the healthcare workers, but not damage the restaurants further by making them give discounts. So we covered that discount for them. The program was wildly successful to the point where we went through the $45,000 in about 6 days, and then we called it off. But we were pretty proud that A, we helped the healthcare workers and first responders, and B, we put that much money into the restaurant economy over the course of 6 days. And of course, West Fargo restaurants participated in that as well. I don't have a list of all who did, but of the we had somewhere between 30 and 40 restaurants participating in that across town. Also, the CVB board voted in May 5th, I think it was, to spend $500,000 out of our reserve fund to give money to the hotels, who obviously have been struggling throughout all of this. 7 West Fargo businesses received rebates in that case for a total of more than $57,000. We also, at that same meeting, our board approved up to $400,000 in matching grants for attractions in the community. We ended up approving 6 of them, so 6 different attractions, nonprofit attractions in our community, got a $50,000 matching grant. They all achieved the match, and that included, among those 6, the Bonanzaville, the Cass County Historical and Cultural Society of Cass County. I forget which direction they go. Anyway, we gave $50,000 to Bonanzaville as well as to 5 other attractions. So that's a brief nutshell of what's been going on. We've continued to support that website and looked for different ways to help out. And of course, we kept doing our regular business as well. I think you're all aware that back in September, the CVB board approved a capital grant to the city of West Fargo for the hockey equipment at the lights at Cheyenne. So we did that, and then we're continually looking for ways to try to help out via lobbying, all sorts of other efforts. Lauren, I know you want to talk a little bit about how much money the state of North Dakota has provided. We could probably move on to that. Unless the commissioners have any questions about the things the CVB has done, we can take a moment to ask about that, or we can go right into the state stuff.
I'll just jump right in, Charlie, and then I'll let them all ask questions about the whole presentation, if you don't mind.
Cool.
So just to remind commissioners and the public how CARES Act funding was distributed, the federal government distributed CARES Act funding to each state, and then it was up to each state on how they would distribute it on to their communities. And so you'll see CARES Act funding distributed differently in Minnesota, for example, than you would have seen in North Dakota. And so because it was up to the state to design how they would further distribute this money into communities, the state of North Dakota decided to create different grant programs that businesses in each community could apply for. And so the first round was the Economic Resiliency Grant, which is how the state really got kicked off in distributing those CARES Act funds. And I'm going to go through each of these briefly and then have Charlie explain each of them a little bit more in depth. And then after that Economic Resiliency Grant closed, a new grant program was created that targeted hospitality businesses, including restaurants and bars. Charlie, I believe it was like 51% of your sales had to be prepared foods or alcohol. Is that right? Something like that.
I think there was a requirement, something like that.
Yes, so it really was targeting those hospitality-centric businesses, and that was called the Hospitality Economic Resiliency Grant. And then after that one closed, another round of funding that really targeted hotels called Hospitality Economic Resiliency Grant Plus was opened, and that one just closed last Friday. And so out of each of these grants, we've asked the state to provide us numbers for each of those grant programs, how many dollars and how many businesses benefited from each of those in West Fargo specifically. And as of these numbers, we've actually gotten an update as of this evening from the state. The West Fargo businesses received 89 separate businesses received an ERG grant for a total of $1.6 million. 27 businesses so far in West Fargo have received the HERG grant for over $750,000. And 4 businesses so far have received the HERG Plus grant for $198,000 so far. And so in total, as of tonight, because the HERG and HERG Plus are still being calculated and distributed, the total as of tonight received in CARES Act funding in West Fargo specifically is $2.5 million. So I think that's a really phenomenal distribution that has happened just in West Fargo. I'm also very grateful for the state using their staff capacity to distribute those grants. I think if grants had been distributed onto communities, that would have been a much larger burden on your staff, and this has still allowed for that distribution of funds to occur. So Charlie, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about the details of each of those and how it was distributed, that would be excellent.
Yeah, you've hit the high points. I think in order, the first one that came out was the Economic Resiliency Grant, and I can tell you, those of us in the destination marketing organizations around the state had a lot of conversations with the Commerce Department, which worked on preparing all of these. The Economic Resiliency Grant was good as far as it went. Obviously, a lot of money went into West Fargo businesses, so that's good. That particular grant was specifically aimed at costs associated with preparing your business for COVID-related things. In other words, PPEs, anything, door kicks, anything you did to make your business more conducive to people feeling comfortable coming there, which was great as far as it went, and it helped a lot of businesses prep in that way, and it covered any business, any kind of business in the state. So that's why there was such a large amount that went out in that regard. Our only concern with that at the time, or my only, I won't apply that to anyone else, my personal concern with that at the time was that it only helped with things that were specifically COVID related, and it didn't help. It really didn't offer $1 toward anything that these bars and restaurants or any other businesses around the state had lost related to the shutdowns that had hit them going forward. So we continued to lobby them, and then ultimately they came when people realized how badly the hospitality industry was being hit by this, which took some people a little while to figure out, but it became pretty obvious, late spring. That hotels, bars, and restaurants were among the hardest hit in this because travel stopped, and specifically with bars and restaurants, they were literally shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, and now they've been restricted again here as the second surge came through this fall. So we hope that we really wanted them to come through and help out with those particular businesses. And the Commerce Department carried that to the Emergency Commission, and that's how we ended up with the first HERG, or Hospitality Economic Resiliency Grant, which was great. I think that was up to $25,000 for a bar or restaurant, and if they had multiple locations, if they had 3 or more locations, they could get up to $75,000. And then of course the hotels were not included in that second one. So there was more lobbying on different people's parts around the state, and the Commerce Department heard that again, particularly the people in the tourism division of the Commerce Department. Sarah Oddie Coleman in particular carried that effort back to the Emergency Commission and said we need to do something to help the hotels, and that's how we got the last one, which was specifically aimed at hotels, and that one closed last Friday. And as Ms. Orchard pointed out, they are still tabulating both the first HERG and the second HERG, even though they're not taking more applications, but they're still working that out. So that's where we're at, and hopefully everyone who qualifies will be able to get their money before the end of the year.
Thank you, Charlie. And I just want to offer our thanks to Charlie and Courtney, even though she wasn't able to join us for the actual presentation. I know she spent a significant part of her evening at our commission meeting. So thank you to both organizations to helping us put this together. And commissioners, if you would have any questions about what we've done so far, we'd welcome them. And if you have other items that you would like to discuss related to economic development, we're here for that as well.
Lauren, I want to say thank you, first of all, for putting this presentation together and for Charlie for being here. Do you know how many businesses have actually closed in West Fargo due to COVID at this point?
I do not personally have that information. No. I have not been contacted specifically by a business saying I am shutting down because of COVID.
Okay. I know of a couple of them, but I didn't know the full scope of it, so.
Commissioner George, I think there are at least a couple of restaurants/bars that have closed. I'm going to fall short of saying the name, so I won't try. But is Billiards in Fargo or West Fargo? First of all, I'm not sure about that.
That's Fargo.
That's Fargo, okay. But there was one over on Veterans that closed.
Boulevard?
Boulevard?
Yeah, both Boulevard and True Blue have closed.
There you go, yes.
And I heard about both of those. I just feel cautious about attributing it to COVID entirely, as I have not seen their bank statements. And so that determination is very difficult for me to make. And unless a business is telling me that they closed because of COVID, that is hard to share publicly.
Generally speaking, I think you can kind of take it to the bank that a lot of bars and restaurants are on the verge of closing, if they haven't closed already. One of the national papers, either the Post or the Times, did a survey like 6 weeks ago of a nationwide survey of people who ran bars and restaurants, and fully 40% of them at that time said if they didn't get some form of significant help, either from the state or the federal government, 40% of them expected to be closed by sometime in the first quarter of 2021, the way things are going. So,
Mr. President, can I make one comment? This just came to me that Governor Bergen will lift the curfew on the bars and restaurants starting tomorrow, but the limited occupancy will stay in place.
Okay, that's good. All right. So will they be able to stay open until their normal closing time, or did he just extend it to later?
Yes. Yep.
Normal. Okay.
He just took the closing time from 10 to 4 away.
That's a nice Christmas present for them.
So I was taking some notes here when you did the presentation, just a quick review. So would it be correct to say $2.5 million in CARES Act money to West Fargo businesses, and was it 89 separate businesses received money from those grants?
I can actually, if you give me a minute to pull up my calculator so I don't get it wrong, but the total amount of CARES Act funding is $2,567,000. $709,072. So I've got the exact number if you'd like that for your notes, Commissioner George, but I would say over $2.5 million is safe. And we got 89 just in ERG, so let me add up the other two very quickly here. And so far, 120 businesses have received CARES Act funding distributed through the state, these programs.
Through the state or in West Fargo?
In West Fargo, distributed by the state, and that number isn't a total number yet because they are still reviewing 2 out of the 3 of those grant programs, so we could probably expect to see some additional distribution.
Lauren and Commissioner George, I would caution it's probably not 120 different ones, because I think some businesses qualified for at least 2 of those grants.
Good point, Charlie. Thank you.
Okay, so then so we see a lot about what the state has done with the CARES Act. And so as the city specifically, I took some notes there too. So we waived our liquor fees, which are due on June 1st for 2020, which came to $70,000. And have we been talking about going forward as far as then with the new year 2021 doing that again, as well as I know the alcohol delivery moratorium ends January 5th, midnight January 5th, which I'm assuming our next commission meeting is probably January 5th. Has that been brought up to allow that to continue?
I think those are great questions. I'm going to turn it over to City Administrator Fisk in just a second. I would just say that the liquor license fees are suspended until June 1st of 2021, so that decision is not right in front of you. You have some time still to extend that. But if you're asking specifically about delivery orders, I thought that was extended indefinitely, but I'll turn that over to City Administrator Fisk if she knows off the top of her head, or John Shockley.
I'm sure Mr. Shockley can answer this much more clearly, but I know that whatever moratorium was put in place can be extended, but I'll let John clarify the date.
Yeah, it was extended to the day after the next city commission meeting. So I was going to ask Tina to put it on the agenda for the next city commission meeting for the commission to decide if it wanted to extend the moratorium.
Mr. Johnson, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I am.
I would like to extend my thank you to you and your board of directors for all that you're doing for the businesses in our community and for the communities of the whole. And I'd also like to personally and publicly thank you and your board for the capital grant for the hockey equipment at the lights. That was an exceptional gesture on your part. If you haven't been out there, it's all set up. We were driving Zambonis there and sharpening ice skates last week, and actually I was running the machine that trims all the ice along the board. So wow. It's terrific, Mr. Johnson, and we're very, very grateful for your insight to bless us with that grant. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dardis, Mayor Dardis. We're happy to participate in these things. We have a long history of capital grants aimed at things that help bring people into town. I haven't been there, but I've seen all the video that Mike Amundson's been posting, and it looks great. And I know you're having open skating there now. So that's a wonderful thing, especially this year, because, you know, outdoor activities are what everybody's supposed to want to do instead of staying in their house all the time. So we're happy to help out.
With regard
Thank you, Charlie.
It's been very interesting because both the Park District as well as West Fargo events, and we're getting all kinds of requests from the Park District to try and get people in there. And of course, we're limiting the amount that can participate due to the COVID situation. But it's really taken off.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I think, you know, if we can just hold on by midsummer and then next winter, things will be great over there. It's going to be wonderful because hopefully the restrictions will be lifted by next year at this time.
But please express our thanks to your board.
I will. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions of Ms. Orchard or Mr. Johnson on this issue?
I don't, Mayor, in particular thank you, Charlie, very much for what you've done, but I do want to make a comment here, Mayor, once, I guess, they're done with their presentation.
All right, thank you. Anything else for Ms. Orchard or Mr. Johnson?
Not for me unless you have questions.
Thank you for being with us.
Yep.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So, I want to go down this road a little bit because over the last, for sure, 2 years, Mayor, you, as well as some of the other commissioners, have stated many, many times that the old commission was cheap and that we didn't spend enough money. And I heard that many times.
I don't think I ever used the word cheap, Commissioner, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll use it just because it's in the right context right now for me to use. But my point is this, is that we did that for a reason. And I've said this before, those reasons are to have a rainy day fund. And to help people when we can help them. And to make sure that we as a city can do that and still function and still pay the bills. And so I think, in my opinion, we're at that time right now where I think we should use some of those rainy day funds. And having said that, I would encourage Commissioner Jurgovic to come forward with his idea that I like very much, and I think we should support it.
Thanks, Mark. So I had chatted with Mark on the phone earlier today, full disclosure, and just thrown out an idea that I've been thinking about for a few days. You know, Fargo did something a week ago that was very much so on the expense side of certain businesses, right? Restaurants and bars. And thinking about that, I was like, well, what could West Fargo do that was not necessarily financially bigger, but, you know, impacted more businesses, but also did something for our taxpayers? So the idea might be administratively challenging, so I'm going to put that question to the side temporarily and just say, I think roughly, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but we probably have about 15,000, city utility bills that we send out a month. What if somehow we could send a $25, I'll say gift card, I'm not quite sure if that's the right lingo, to every one of those people with the restriction that it was for it could only be used at a West Fargo business. So, obviously businesses would have to opt into being willing to accept it as payment, and they would just simply, submit them to the city for reimbursement for that $25. If it's, 15,000 city utility bills, if that's the list, times 25, I think it's $375,000 if my math is correct. It could come out of economic development, which based off of tonight's packet, has a balance of over $5 million. It would give every single, maybe not every single resident that is paying a city utility bill $25, which isn't much, but at least they're getting something, pays for lunch, I guess, or pays for part of dinner, encourages them to order out or stop and shop locally, or, again, whatever business in West Fargo would want to accept it. I think we would hope that it would be spent more on the small businesses, restaurants, bars, versus, not to exclude Costco, but that isn't what I'm thinking of when I say this. But the idea would be, and there's there's an added effect to this. If a family goes out for dinner, they're going to spend more than $25, right? So we're actually driving more than $25 of revenue to a restaurant or bar. People are going to spend more than that. So there's kind of an exponential effect to this in terms of our local economy, and it just seems like a great way to spend some of our economic development sales tax revenue. I just don't know about how administratively hard it would be for the city to figure out, the certificate or the gift card that, obviously couldn't be forged very easily, and distribute it and do it quickly so that it could have a quick impact in the coming few months.
Commissioner Jurdovic, I don't want to detract from commission discussion, but I do have some comments about administratively what we've thought about myself and Melissa Richard, just to help answer some of those questions right off the bat. So we did a little digging into how many households we would anticipate in the community, and it's just over 15,000. And I think to your comment about could we use utility bills, the one downside to using utility bills is how apartment complexes are handled, because those utilities would only go to the owner of the building, and then it's up to them to distribute the cost. And so we've thought it would most likely administratively function better if we were to purchase addresses from the United States Postal Service, because that would probably give us a more accurate listing of households. And we did just a little rudimentary calculation of how could we advertise this, communicate to businesses, make sure there are window clings to express that they're accepting the gift cards, create the gift cards. How could we do all of that? And if it was a $20 gift card at West Fargo businesses, I think our request would have been around $350,000. Now, you just mentioned $25. I just did a quick little calculation that made it quite a bit more expensive, so that's closer to probably $400,000, so we could have an allowance to allow us to do some of that marketing and make sure it gets out. And we would also request at a minimum of 2 months to actually get this done, just so that we have the staff time to do it. If it's 1 month, we just want to warn you that it's probably the only thing our communications and economic development team can do for a month. So we just wanted to let you know that likely we would prefer it as staff if you could give us 2 months to do it, have something produced in February. That would also allow us to start calling businesses personally and talking to them about how would they like to advertise that their business is taking part. And a 1 month turnaround time might lead to a little more chaos than we would like. So that's just the background I'd give. I know that City Administrator Fisk may have some other comments, and if Melissa Richard is on the phone, they may also have some added advice.
I just want to mention that in terms of administration, this is Melissa Richard. We also need to touch base with the finance department on what that refund process looks like and how that would be determined as well. And so it's just one more layer to consider.
Well, is Jim on the line?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Simmons. I've worked in communities before that do this type of thing, And it's not as complicated for reimbursement as you might think. What it is you have to have the card, certificate, whatever. The business collects them, and then they bring them to us, in this case. Usually it's a chamber thing, and you just add them up, and if it's $300, we give them a check for $300. I mean, it's not a difficult process to get the money back to them. The hardest part is getting something that people can't cheat and replicate, and then just getting them out and getting businesses to agree to take it. But I just think if this is something you want to do, I think we can put our minds to it and get it done as soon as possible. But we want to do it right, so that all of a sudden we don't miss a whole block of people that are very offended, and then we end up with one person with 40 cards and 200 people with nothing. So
I totally get that, Tina, and thank you very much for jumping in, because I was already starting to go off a little bit here. When we get into this red tape crap with government, I tell you what, I just soon all the staff get off the line and let the commission deal with it, because it gets and it's no fault of yours, it's just government. It's the way government works, and I can't stand it anymore. I think something like this can be done very easily. Uh-oh, am I still there?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm losing my power on my battery. See, everybody wants me to shut up. I think this is the way to do it. I mean, it's time to help our people out a little bit, and God damn it, let's get this done. That's all I got to say. Let's get it done.
I love this idea. Now, is it per household then that we would be doing?
I mean, my original idea was thinking of it from a utility bill perspective. I think it was Lauren that brought up the fact that would miss certain people in apartments and so forth. So, I mean, if we can expand upon that, I'm all for it. But yes, I mean, I think it's generally per household, and excluding business addresses or business utility bills.
So do we have an estimate of how many people live in apartments in West Fargo? So you have to take the 15,000 plus and add that on. So, again, when you're thinking about your dollar amount of 25 or 20, the number of people living in the apartments is substantial.
Well, I think we come up with $25 for 15,000 people. Do the math, it's 375,000. So if we went 400,000, that would be leeway in there, like Lauren had said, to go about 400,000. That would give us leeway. And again, not only, Lauren, the economic tax of this, I realize it's coming out of your fund. Thank you so much for that. But we all got to remember that the citizens paid this tax too. This is their money in essence. We're just helping them out right now and giving a little bit back. That's all. It's not the end of the world here. I think it's a great idea.
And it would be a way to provide an economic benefit that goes out to everyone, right? I mean, it could be spent at any business. Every household gets something. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money on a household basis. No one's gonna, it's not gonna make it for anybody, obviously, but at least they get something and they get to choose where they spend it.
I think
I'm sorry, Commissioner Simmons. I was just going to compliment all of you and say thank you for your concern for our businesses, and thank you for being so considerate and thinking up this plan.
With this time of COVID, with all of us sitting here, and I'm looking at you folks all online like this, to me, this is just a touch of humanity, a touch of human, just giving back a little bit here. And my God, folks, if we can't do this, honestly, it's time to hang it up. I mean, this is just a little humanity, or let's just give back. I'm actually begging you folks to go with this, because I think it's I think it's something we need to do.
I totally agree. I'm just wondering, do we need to put an expiration date on when this can be used and things like that? And Lauren, do you have obviously you've done a little background, little work on getting these addresses from the Postal Service. Do you know how long it would take to get that? Do we need
I don't, but what I could offer as a proposal to you all is if you were to direct us to go and investigate this program, we could have something packaged for you by your next commission meeting, rather than trying to design it all here on the call. And that way we can have a lot more information prepared for you as far as, what is the budget we need, where does it need to come from, and how would we administer it. And that, I think, would give you guys more to take back to your constituents as well for how would it actually. So you can allow us that time.
there's also probably a legal question in there, because I don't think in North Dakota a gift card can actually expire, so I don't know if I'm not sure if there's a way to manage that, because I think we want to have an impact over us, the next 6 months, not over the next 2 years.
Well, one of the things too is, and I understand, Lauren, where you're coming from, but kind of like Tina mentioned, the simplest way that I could think of is just a thought process for you staff to figure this out, but would be to go to the utility bill and then try to figure out the apartments separately, because you put in the utility bill, boom, everybody gets it, they'll get it right away. You don't have to mess with the post office, which the addresses are probably wrong anyway, some of them, when I sent out campaigning, so they're not accurate either. The most accurate information we probably have is the water billing system. And that mechanism is there for us to use today.
Commissioner Simmons, I agree with you. I think, though, that we, rather than, and I know Lauren and I had discussed this when it was first brought up, and Commissioner Jarovig and so forth, I think what we would do is send a letter, and whatever this thing is, in the mail, not with their utility bill, because not everybody gets a mailed utility bill. And that way, we would make it stand out so that they wouldn't throw it in the garbage. But that would be how we would utilize our utility billing software, and then people that rent houses would still receive it rather than the owner receiving it. So we'd have to make sure to clarify that. And Jim and his staff know how to separate those out, and we can work with them.
Okay, great.
I just need to check with John if it's legal.
Well, I was going to say that I agree with Lauren that we could have it ready for the next commission meeting. I think there's a way to do it, but I would like the resolution that the commission passes to have some specific language so that the activity doesn't get challenged. Everybody thinks it's a good idea, but there's always the one person out there who doesn't think it's a good idea that can challenge it. So, I agree with Lauren that we could have something packaged up that would be available for the commission to vote on at the next city commission meeting.
Fair enough for me, fair enough.
Just another comment, you could have, this could spur something where you've got restaurant A say, bring me your West Fargo bucks here and we'll match it, or something like that, just to spur a little more. Let them be creative with it too. I know there's public listening. I'm not saying that you have to do this, but it could be interesting, the different kinds of campaigns they could use to draw more business in. Bring your West Fargo, and I think we talked about this, Eric, a pay it forward kind of buck type thing. And
I think the bang for the buck is bigger than the amount of money we spend. If what we end up spending out of economic development is $400,000, I think we're driving way more than that in terms of impact to West Fargo businesses if we move,
Right, I agree. Okay, that's the plan.
Well, I'll make a motion to direct staff to come up with a game plan here on this. Whatever you want. What do we want to call this, Eric?
It's kind of a pay it forward kind of thing, but I don't know if that's. I'm not sure we need. We can leave it up to Melissa to brand it for all.
How about like COVID-19 relief or West Fargo relief or something?
There you go.
We'll come up with a cute name for you by next time. How about that?
There we go.
Perfect.
Great. I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to have the staff move forward on this item.
Eric's idea.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 11. The Police Department requisition request. Chief Auditors.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the Commission. I appreciate being able to come before you tonight and share a request that I had forwarded to our City Administrator for approval. And basically, I'm not going to sit and read the 3 or 4 page memorandum that I put together. I think it's contained in the Commission packet. But just to give you a little bit of a highlight, of what I've requested in terms of operational needs for the police department into 2021 that wasn't necessarily budgeted for. So shortly after taking over as a police chief in September, I sat down with our command staff and tried to identify some of the most pressing needs internally in the police department. And as a result of that, we started to take a look at our budget. Towards the end of the year, I've worked with both the finance director, Jim Larson, and internally with my command staff and our business manager. And we believe, based on current projections, that we're going to be somewhere north of $600,000 in projected savings that was budgeted money for the police department in 2020. And so what I put together is a proposal asking for the commission's approval to shore up some operational needs by way of some squad cars, some marked police cars, because our fleet is aging and getting dangerously high in the amount of miles that we put on those vehicles, and with the job that we're asking our police officers to go out and do every day. It's not only dangerous for our officers, but it also poses somewhat of a danger for our citizens to have vehicles out there with 120, 130, 140,000 miles on them. In addition to that, that's our marked patrol fleet. So in addition to that, we are also trying to play a little bit of catch up on our unmarked fleet for our investigators. And so part of the proposal is that I put forward is to try to shore that up a little bit by purchasing 2 unmarked vehicles for our investigators. Part of the problem is we anticipate losing, at this point, 2 vehicles that were provided to us in the police department through our affiliation with federal task forces, one with the U.S. Marshals and one with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So, and then the final piece of it, which brings us to about $480,000 of the $600,000 projected savings, is what I believe is a need to harden our employee parking lot on the east side of our City Hall complex. I know this became an issue and was discussed prior to my tenure here as a police chief. Certainly during the civil unrest that took place this summer, and we've had some incidents here in the police department since I've been here with things that are very concerning to me, especially in light of some of the things that are going on nationwide. And so we have had people in our parking lot actually filming the personal vehicles and license plates of our city employees, and that includes sworn and non-sworn staff. And obviously, being a 24-hour operation, I get very concerned about our employees and some of the things that might be taking place in our parking lot with our civilian non-sworn staff, in addition to our sworn staff. So that's the proposal I put forward. It'd be for 3 additional marked squad cars to try to shore up that gap a little bit, 2 unmarked cars, and then a proposal to look at hardening our employee parking lot with some gates, and then maybe some sort of covering over our fence that's currently transparent that you can see right into the lot. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any additional details if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions of the Chief?
I just have 2 quick comments.
Please.
Yeah, the first one is the last time I was on a ride-along with a police officer, I don't know what car it was in, but it needs to be upgraded. So I can agree with I can agree with that thought. But the thing I really love about this is the fact that as is explained in the packet, this would otherwise be a 2022 expense. And as I've mentioned before, when we approved our 2021 budget, we have a 2022 budget problem, I believe. And if this helps in any way lower the ask in 2022, I think this is a great thing to do with the extra budget dollars this year.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Any additional questions of the Chief? Commissioners, how would you like to move forward?
I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to allow the West Fargo Police Department to amend their budget for 2021 with regard to additional purchase of cars due to the savings that they've demonstrated this calendar year. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate your support. I speak on behalf of all the employees in the police department. We thank you.
Item number 12 is to amend the engineer's report and authorize an engineer to prepare plans and specifications on assessment 6056. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the Commission. I'll keep this real brief tonight. There's extensive information in the packet. I do want to point out that we did bring this improvement district to the Commission back in August, where we created or approved an engineer's report, and then Commission also approved a notice of order to construct sidewalks. Over the past few months, we have given property owners an opportunity to either construct their sidewalk, and these are sidewalks in developed areas where we have 80% development along the street, and these are properties that have yet to build a house. This is a process outlined in our city ordinances. Again, we've, over the past few months, have given property owners to either construct their own sidewalk or opt into the city's project here, where the city will construct the sidewalk and finance that through a special assessment. So before you in this packet is a current list of properties that we are intending to move forward with, constructing sidewalks and financing that construction through special assessment. And in addition to that list, there has also been a request received by the West Fargo Park District to include some bike path improvements on their properties, which they will own and maintain, and also finance those construction costs as well. And so, again, as you can see in your packet, we have an amended engineer's report with updated construction cost estimates. One thing that I did not include in the packet was a comparison to the engineer's report that was approved back in August, which, as you can see, I will show you here on a screen. The construction estimate provided back in August was $805,000 of an estimate for improvements relating to special assessments, and the $45,000 of estimated work to be done on city-maintained bike paths. So the current estimate is roughly half of what we were originally proposing, and again, that's due to the number of properties that have decided to construct their own sidewalks. And then in addition, what we are showing in the engineer's report included in the packet is an estimate for the work being requested by the West Fargo Park District. Some of those improvements are on Elmwood Park, in which they have proposed that we consider an asphalt bid price and a concrete bid price so that they can compare the bids and award accordingly. And then there's also improvements in the Wilds development. And so we're tracking those costs independently, but again, at this stage in the process, it's a matter of amending the engineer's report that was approved back in August, and then getting authorization to prepare the final construction plans and specifications. So with that, I'll pause and ask if there are any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Scott?
I just want to make sure
that everybody understands that the resident or the property owners had the choice of constructing their own sidewalks, and they have chosen not to do that, so they will be special assessed, right?
That is correct, Mr. Olson.
Thank you.
Additional questions from Mr. Scott? Thank you, Mr. Scott. Commissioners, your thoughts, please.
I'll make the motion to amend the engineer's report and authorize the engineer to prepare the plans for sidewalk improvement 6056.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the amended engineer's report and authorize the engineer to prepare plans and specifications for 6056. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is item number 13, is to adopt a resolution consenting to a memorandum of understanding between the Metro Flood Diversion Authority and the Southeast Water Resource District related to the proposed Cheyenne River Mitigation Project, an environment mitigation project in conjunction with the Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Area Flood Risk Management Project. Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. I'll try to be brief tonight. The board had previously received a briefing by the Executive Director of the Diversion Authority on November 18th of last year regarding this project. If you'll recall, this is a project that will be completed after the diversion project, the FM diversion is complete. That will result in some removal of structures on the Cheyenne diversion. That will allow the water to go back and forth within the Cheyenne River within the city of West Fargo. It's not negatively impacting the flood control efforts, but what it does is it does allow for bank stability to occur in the area north of I-29 when the gates, I-94 when the gates of the river close, and you won't have that up and down of the Cheyenne River. It's also environmentally friendly because it allows for increased fish passage, and so the city engineer has had opportunity to review this. I reviewed it. The reason that Southeast Cass is the signature on it, they actually own and control the diversion channel, but we felt it was important that the City Commission also consent in the approval of this project. I don't know, Dustin, do you have anything to add?
No, I really don't have much to add. I can certainly pull up the presentation that we gave back in November of 2019 with the director, Joel Polson, but otherwise I'm here to answer any technical questions.
You don't need to do that, Dustin.
Any questions for Mr. Shockley? Mr. Shockley is asking for an actionable item to adopt the resolution consenting to the memorandum of understanding.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution consenting to the memorandum of understanding between the Metro Flood Diversion Authority and the Southeast Cass Water Resource District with regard to the proposed Cheyenne River Mitigation Project. Now, I hope you all read it because there are some changes to our existing flood protection. The good news is that it does add additional flood protection for our city and for our residents. And an item that Commissioner George and I have been working with is river bank sloughing, and this will have a more constant 400, John, CFS moving through the city of West Fargo should take away that up and down. So it's a positive thing, very positive. So, been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is item number 14, and that's a memorandum of agreement with Cass County Government and the City of West Fargo, 12th Avenue North, and a snow gate installed on West Fargo on 9th Street Northwest. Mr. Jason Benson, Cass County Engineer, is presenting.
All right, thank you, Commission Chair and Commissioners. Over the last 10, 15 years, every time we have a major snow incident or blizzard, we've had a lot of vehicles between Mapleton and Castleton on Highway 10 or 12th Avenue North get stuck. A lot of abandoned vehicles that we end up finding with our snowplow. And over the last few years on the interstate, the North Dakota DOT has increased their snow gates in the metro area, even with some more recent snow gates that have been installed on I-94 at the West Fargo Main Avenue interchange. So with that, people are looking for alternate routes to get around and outside of the metro when it comes to a blizzard condition where the interstate shut down, which just exacerbates the problem of safety issues out on that segment of Highway 10 as people try to get out to Mapleton, Castleton, or get onto I-94 west of town, say at the Kindred interchange or Raymond interchange where there aren't snow gates. In conjunction with Sheriff Jesse Johnner, I worked with him, and then I've also been working with the City of Mapleton. We installed one gate on the east side of Mapleton, and then we've worked with the city engineer, Dustin Scott, and then Andrew Rucky, who works in the engineering office, also on installing a gate just west of the Public Works building on 12th Avenue. And these gates will be operated by the Sheriff's Department. They're really easy to lift up and down. They do have lights on them so that you'll be able to see in limited visibility in darkness. And the gates only extend about halfway across the road, so for emergency vehicles, you can still get around. The core part of the agreement is really the operation and who's paying for what. And really the only thing, if there's any damage, we would come back and repair or replace that. The only cost that it's there is instead of us installing a separate pole, we mounted it to an existing light pole, and then those flashing lights would be connected to the power, so the city would pay the power, but it's a flashing light that's going to be operated a dozen hours out of a year maybe. But we wanted to bring this as an agreement. We're doing the same thing with the City of Mapleton, so that way in the future when Dustin and I are gone, people know who's responsible for what. And if there's any questions, I'm open for it.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Any questions for Cass County Engineer Jason Benson? All right. Thank you, Mr. Benson, for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Cass County is asking for a memorandum of agreement. Your pleasure.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Simmons moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the memorandum of agreement with Cass County government and the City of West Fargo for 12th Avenue North and a snow gate installation west of 9th Street Northwest. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Item number 15 is the City Administrator's report.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. I will make this equally as quick because it's almost my bedtime. A couple things. I just want to let you know I've been continuing to meet with all the different department heads to talk about the fun of 2020. All the goals have been met, what our goals are for 2021 and plans so that we can make sure that we're all headed in the same path and moving forward. I have a few of those left to go, but I must say that I'm very impressed with all of our staff. This was a really difficult year, and everyone has managed to forge forward, get everything done, keep their staff on task, keep things organized, and between them and the guidance of the City Commission, I want to thank everybody because it was a tough year, and we actually came out strong like West Fargo always does. So that's a testament to the good staff and good leadership that we have from all of you. The 2019 audit, I know this seems late, but it will close soon. It'll be ready for distribution by the end of the year. That's something that Jim can talk more on when we have it, or if you want to ask him questions now. But he's been working very hard, him and his staff. With the new auditors, they're requesting a lot more information. We're getting a really good, strong, detailed audit that's checking into everything. And so I'm really excited to see the format of how it comes out and what we find out. And like I said, Jim and his staff have been doing amazing, getting that going and keeping everything running. I have talked with our HR director, Jenna, about reviewing the City Hall and different department protocols for COVID due to the drop in numbers. In speaking with her, she wants to wait until January 4th to see what the governor does if he changes the code level. But basically all I'm saying is that we want to start bringing more people back to work. We want to start opening up the meeting rooms a little bit so that we can actually physically see each other. I think it's very taxing on staff and commissioners when we can't physically talk to each other and see each other. And so we're looking into that and trying to get that moving forward so we can start getting a little tiny degree of something kind of normal. So I'll keep you posted on that. Our offices will be closed Thursday and Friday as we get Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. But we work New Year's Eve, so we'll be open, and New Year's Day, we're closed. Communications has done a fantastic job already, pushing that information out there, letting everybody know. So we'll keep that out there, but if you have any questions, concerns, let me know. And then my final question is for February 15th is a commission meeting day, but that's President's Day and the offices are all closed. So I'm wondering if you would be comfortable with moving it to Tuesday the 16th.
It'll be fine.
Okay. Do we need a motion to do that, John? Nope. Okay.
No, because it's a holiday. You can't meet that day anyway, so you just automatically move it to the next day.
Okay.
Unless
Perfect.
the commission wanted to meet on that holiday.
Yeah, if you want to, I'll be there. I don't know, whatever. Okay, well, other than that, thank you for all you've done for all of our department heads in the city for 2020, and 2021 is going to be even better. Way better, has to be. Thank you.
Questions for City Administrator Tina?
Yes, Mayor, I do have a question.
Please, Commissioner Wilson.
Tina, you had mentioned that you've been meeting with department heads about what their goals are for 2021. Is there any way we can have a brown bag to hear those same goals and maybe give you a little, see how they align with what our vision is of the city, or just hear what their visions are so we can get some feedback? Hear that?
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. I would absolutely love that, as I do have a list of questions that I've wanted to ask commissioners, and so it would be nice to be able to take all the input from staff and maybe have all of them there to listen to what your thoughts are on where you'd like to see West Fargo head in 2021 and beyond. So that would be fantastic. I will work on trying to get that set up sometime, probably the latter half of January maybe, and based on everybody's availability, and that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Any correspondence, Mrs. Fisk?
There is one. Okay, now I got to find it. I've been burying my papers all night. We had one letter of thanks that you had received, Bernie, from, I'm sorry, I buried it. You must remember. You only get 1 million pieces of paper a day. We had a letter of thanks for the organization for the city's support, and I will scan that in and email it to all of you tomorrow. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there any non-agenda items that should come before the commission this evening by any of the commissioners? Is there any non-agenda items that should come before the commission from staff? Hearing none, Mr. Simmons.
I'll make a motion to adjourn and say Merry Christmas to everyone.
Commissioner Olson.
I second the motion. And Happy New Year.
We stand adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
everybody. Merry Christmas.
Goodbye.